Hey guys, welcome to Green Bean Fiction. So in today's video we are gonna see what if Deku fought zombie apocalypse and had Harem movie. Before starting, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you are interested in MHA fanfictions. This story is My Hero Academia of the Dead by Anthony Tyler 9. Now without wasting any more time, let's dive in. Izuku was walking home from school as he had suffered a horrible beating from Bakugo. He just didn't get why that guy wanted him to give up his dream of becoming a hero. He had always supported his dreams of becoming a hero, so why couldn't he? Izuku made it home as he went to the bathroom to take a look at the damage that he had taken. Surprisingly, the world seemed quiet on his walk home today. No villain attacks and seemingly no heroes were around at all. It was something he wanted more than anything. He wanted a quiet day, and he finally got it. He needed to clean up his wounds before his mother came home. But for some reason he had a bad feeling about what was going on. There was always heroes around the area, and they had always had a villain to fight. And the fact that there were no villains as well as heroes? That was a cause for concern. After cleaning up his wounds and counting the number of scars he had on his body, he went to make himself some dinner as his mother had taught him to make food. As he was making his food, the news station came on the television as it seemed like they were all in a hurry to pack up and leave. Attention one and all, there is a viral outbreak on the rise in the entire world. We advise you all to stay in your homes as well as stay hidden. There have been reports of heroes going into the hospitals with bite marks as well as dying en masse. We advise you to stay near your family, as well as hunker down with as much supplies as you can. We don't know how long this will take to blow over. God be with us, the news reporter said, before a crash was heard from behind them. As soon as that was heard, Izuku watched as the news anchor had fought for his life against some people walking towards his position and then was taken down really easily. He watched as the man was taken apart, all while he was screaming in pain and suffering. Turning off the television, Izuku moved to the phone as he made to call his mom to make sure that she is all right. Ring 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 ring. Izuku. Hey, are you okay? Izuku Midoriya, or Izuku's mother, called scared. I am okay. Are you okay, Mom? Izuku asked, scared for her safety. I'm sorry, Izuku. I am so sorry. I don't know why, but you need to make sure that you're not bitten by them. Izuku said, scared for her life whilst her breathing got even more erratic. Mom, what are you talking about? Izuku asked, scared. Why, you need to make sure that you don't get bitten by these undead creatures. Izuku started, but after hearing a groan outside her room, whispered to her son. Are you safe, Mom? Izuku asked, worried. I'm sorry, baby, but I can't come home. I was bitten by them. I'm so sorry for you. I am leaving you all alone by yourself in all of this. Train yourself to survive in this new world, okay, sweetie? Izuku asked, a bit louder. But this was the wrong choice for her as banging was heard on the other side of the phone for Izuku. Mom. You need to get out of there, Izuku yelled out. Baby, I am so proud of you. I am sorry for not defending you better against those who hate you. I wish you had a better life. I hope you can forgive Gra or *GYA. Izuku apologized before being eaten on the phone. Mom. Mom. MOOM. Izuku yelled on his phone. As soon as he was about to call her again, the phone lines went dark, and he looked at his phone with fear as there was no internet as well as connection to Wi-Fi. Mom. I'm sorry for not telling you sooner about my life at school. Izuku said, sadly while crying. As he said this, he heard explosions coming from the city and he moved to his window and saw that the buildings in the distance were exploding as well as there were people on the streets running from the dead. Izuku covered the windows of his home with sheets as well as barricaded his home with his table and chairs. As he was about to barricade his front door, it began to bang relentlessly as he stared through the peephole as he saw a young child in fear as he heard groans coming towards the little girl. Opening his door quickly, he found her covered in blood as well as guts as he brought her inside and barricaded his front door. As soon as this happened, there was banging on the door as the groans from the undead were loud. Izuku looked at the little girl as she stared in fear of the door, and Izuku picked her up and moved her to the bathroom in order to clean her up. In the bathroom, she was sat in the bathtub as he washed her hair as well as body softly as she stared at him in fear of what might happen to her. As soon as she noticed his faraway look in his eyes, She thought that she did something to him and was about to speak up when he looked at her with compassion as well as love compared to the ones she received from him. "What's your name, little one?" Izuku asked, softly. My name is Arie." The now named Arie said. "My name is Izuku Midoriya. And don't worry, I will protect you from them. I will take care of you and make sure that you're safe," Izuku said, with a sad smile. The weeks that went by was horrifying as Izuku had to make a campfire inside the house in order to make food for him and little Arie. With both of them eating the food they have, it would only last a few days at least, and during this time Izuku was working out in order to make his muscles stronger in order to defend himself from the undead. He had also gone out into the building to collect food from the neighbors' homes as he knew that they had left their homes going to work in the mornings and most likely had died. As he returned, he found Arie staring at him in fear as she thought he would die out there. He had placed large bowls on the roof of the building in order to collect rainwater to get some fresh water. They still had electricity, so if they collected enough water, they could make it cold enough to drink. Izuku hadn't heard what happened to the Bakugos, and if they died, he didn't know what to think. He had a bad relationship with Katsuki, but at the same time he hoped that his mother was at least alive so she could be there with him. He needed a mother just like little Arie needed him. Izuku would go to sleep with Arie that night with her hugging his chest tightly as she thought he would disappear in the morning. As he woke up the next morning, he noticed that the amount of undead in the area was lower than normal, as well as they all seemed to be gone from the area. Izuku collected food and other supplies from other apartments in the area as he collected knives as well in order to defend himself against the dead. He didn't know how many days had passed since the start of the apocalypse, but he knew that he couldn't leave Arie all by herself as it would mean he couldn't keep his promise to her. As he was searching for food and supplies, he found a woman who was in the middle of the street as if looking for something. She wore battle-ready clothes as she had a backpack on her back, and she was searching for the cars nearby for seemingly supplies. Izuku had moved away from the woman thinking that she was an undead, but before he could get very far the woman turned around and was revealed to be a young girl around his age. She had dreadlocks for hair that was salmon-colored. She had crosshairs for eyes, and she was smiling at him as she ran to him. Izuku, thinking that she was an undead, ran for his life as soon as she came close to him. The girl didn't seem bothered by this as she continued to follow him around the area. But as soon as he ran into a building, he got to the 4th floor as he got inside his home and placed the barricade on it in order to keep the undead girl out. But as soon as he thought the coast was clear, he heard soft knocking on his door. "Hey, are you alright? I need to know if you're alive in there," the girl called out. Izuku was at a loss for words. He thought he and Arie were the last ones alive. He opened the door and pulled her inside as she sat on his couch as he checked her for bites or scratches on her body. She was being amused by this as she never thought that she would be the one who would have her space invaded by a boy who seemed like her age, but he seemed more scared of others than he was of wanting to get into her personal space. Alright, no bites or scratches. I thought you were one of them," Izuku said, sitting on the other couch. "What do you mean one of them?" the girl asked, confused. "The dead. I've noticed more of them coming around here as well as moving on afterward." "It's not natural," Izuku said, as he looked at his notes as well as his diary of the world going to shit. "What are you writing in?" the girl asked. "I am writing down what happened today. Think of it like a catalog of the days as well as nights of what happened so far. And my name is Izuku Midoriya, nice to meet you," Izuku said, stuttering a little. "My name is Hatsume Mei, future owner of Hatsume Industries," she said, loudly. Which got Izuku to place his hand over her mouth. "Quiet. We can't let the undead know we're here," Izuku whisper shouted. As Mei nodded her head, she stared into his eyes as he was extremely terrified of the undead seemingly, but then a thought occurred to her. What if she stayed with him and they cleared this area out and made it a survivor camp? It would give her a job to do with him as well as they could allow others to enter the place for safety. "Can I stay here with you? We could start a community?" Mei asked. "As much as I would love that, I can't let you stay longer. The undead are enough around here, and with you. I'm sorry, but I wouldn't be able to control my hormones enough to not fuck you silly," Izuku said, looking away blushing. "What do you mean by that?" Mei asked. "The undead are capable of smelling those with quirks. I have to put Arie under my dirty clothes in order to hide her quirk's scent. Izuku said, looking away. Wait, you found something on the undead? She asked, bewildered. Yes, and I found other things like they can use the quirks that they used to have, as well as apparently when I am bitten by them nothing happens. Izuku said, revealing a 2-day-long bite mark on his left wrist. As soon as Mei saw this, she knew that his body held genes that didn't allow the undead to kill him through a bite. They could have a cure. Wait, if you're immune to them. That means we can find the cure, Mei said, as Izuku started to talk. Look, Mei, as much as I would love to help the world get back to normal, nobody would even think that it was me that caused the healing of the world. They would think that I had started this mess and try to kill me as soon as possible. We just need to let nature take its course in order to survive this world. Izuku said, looking out the window. I can only allow you to stay here for 1 night, maybe 2 at the most, but if you wish to stay here you need to help me in getting supplies as well as collecting materials to block off the roads as well as alleyways from the undead getting in. Izuku said, looking at her. You can count on me, Izuku. I will help you get this place ready for people to come and survive with us. Mei said, with a smile. Well, thank you for your help. I will sleep on the couch, you can sleep on the bed in my room. It's down the hall and to the left. It has an All Might sticker on it with my name on it. Izuku said, placing Arie on his chest and falling asleep. Mei entered the room and found a lot of hero merch on the walls as well as a stand in a corner of the room. She went to sleep with one thing on her mind: why was he so cautious around others? Waking up on the couch the next morning, Izuku gets up off the couch and makes breakfast for himself as well as Arie and their new guest. He makes scrambled eggs, with bacon as well as a muffin as he gets the ingredients out on a pan and cooks them for most of the morning. During this time, Mei wakes up and enters the kitchen of the quirkless boy as Arie enters as well. They smell the food as he is setting up the table for the 3 of them. With this they are able to eat their breakfast in peace and quiet until Mei begins talking about what she used to do before the apocalypse. It was a nice and calm morning as he watched her go on and on about each and every baby that she had created. And to find out it was to all be shown at the UA entrance exams later that same year, made him wish this never happened in the first place. After eating breakfast, Izuku and Mei collected as much wood planks as they could to get a basic fence around the house in order to defend against the dead. Clearing out the apartment complex was easy enough since not many people remained there after the fall of society. But Izuku could swear every night he went to sleep he heard the sounds of people crying for help as they were eaten alive by the dead. It was so bad that he had to soundproof his room in order to sleep at night, and since Mei was going to stay there he managed to connect the rooms of the floor they were on in order to make sure that they had enough room for the 3 of them. It took them a lot of time as before it was 3 p.m. Izuku looked around the neighborhood in search of something, and it was honestly scaring Mei and Arie with how he muttered about something like a horde coming by. Mr. Izuku. What do you mean that a horde is coming? Arie asked, scared. Why yeah, what do you mean by that? Mei asked, confused. There should have been a horde coming by today. Before you came over 2 days ago, I had managed to time the hordes that came by every week, and there should have been one today around this time. Izuku explained, as he stared at both of them. Arie became terrified as Mei just looked at him like he was crazy. Did he really watch the dead like a hawk and time when they horde around this place? Are you sure that they'd even? Before Mei could finish her thought process, a huge amount of rumbling came over the neighborhood. As soon as it happened, Izuku hid both Mei and Arie inside his dirty clothes as he hid inside a closet as the dead came by the house. Of course, the closet was next to his dirty clothes, but he heard how Mei and Arie were breathing heavily as they were terrified of being torn to shreds. The dead come here every week on Monday afternoon at 3 p.m. Dead on the time every time, but this time they're late by a few minutes. I guess either my timing is a bit off, or someone or something got them a little distracted for a little bit. Izuku muttered. Mei hearing this made her theory that they came to large amounts of people hoping for a free meal, but it was just that. A theory. Soon after the rumbling happened, it ended as both Izuku, Mei and Arie came out of their hiding spots as he caught his breath that he never thought he was holding. Well, I think we should get that wall erected immediately. Mei said, now serious. Do you have everything you need to make the wall able to hold off thousands of undead? Izuku asked, worried. I guess I can use a lot more stuff in order to make sure the wall never falls, but we'd need people to watch over it as well as make sure that none of them can climb the walls in the first place. Mei said, smirking at him. Follow me. I know a place where we can get some metals as well as supplies for the wall as well as contacting the outside world. Izuku said, getting himself ready. Where are you going? Mei asked, with Arie not far behind. I am heading to Dagoba Municipal Beach Park. The one place with enough scrap metal as well as supplies to create a wall big enough to keep our area safe from the undead until we clean Japan dry of resources. Izuku said, walking through the door. Mei grabbed Arie as well as got herself ready for the journey to collect enough supplies in order to make the wall over the week as well as months coming. It didn't take that long in order to get to Dagoba when they found the trash-filled beach, and Izuku wasn't taking any chances when he found a few corpses on the ground nearby and stabbing them in the head. What they didn't know was that someone was watching them from afar with a serious look on their face. Izuku cleared a small portion of the beach in order to show Mei all the supplies he was talking about, as he stared at the horizon of the ocean. Mei stood next to him as she stared at the beautiful sight. If we make this small community a reality, we could actually get some visitors seeking shelter as well as a home. Mei said, looking into Izuku's emerald eyes. There was something mysterious about him that she just couldn't understand. He was so strong, but at the same time so meek as well as timid that she could have called him Broccoli Boy, but he just told her to call him Izuku. I know, but if this is the cost of making a small community that craves a small amount of peace, then I am willing to give up my quiet to make sure that people are secure as well as safe from the undead. Izuku said, looking at her with a small but comforting smile. I knew that you were the right one. A voice called out. As Izuku immediately got on guard, he turned around only to come face to face to an old man who had seen better days. He had blonde bangs that came over his face as his eyes were sunken in as they were as blue as the sky. Izuku recognized the eyes as well as the get-up immediately. All Might? Izuku asked, confused. Quiet down, boy. All Might whisper shouted. A few minutes later and cleaning up some blood later, Izuku and Mei were trying to make sure that All Might was okay as he stared at them with shock and awe at how kind they were being. I thought you were taken down in the beginning, Izuku asked, bewildered. I thought the very same, but at the same time, I believe my quirk kept me alive the entire time. It didn't wish for me to die so soon, All Might said, looking at them. But if you're alive, what happened to the entirety of Japan? Is it like this everywhere? Izuku asked. Yes, it is the same across the entire world. I was barely able to escape due to my friend leading the dead away from me as I was extremely injured. But I don't know if he is alive at the moment, by the way. You can call me Toshinori Yagi, All Might said. Oh right, my name is Midoriya Izuku, and this is Hatsume Mei, and the little girl is Arie-chan. Izuku introduced his allies. Nice to meet you all, but are you trying to build a wall nearby? I couldn't help but overhear what you were talking about. Toshinori asked, curious. Why yeah, we were trying to collect enough supplies in order to begin making the wall tomorrow. It will take some time, but as soon as it's good and up we will be able to accept many people looking for shelter. But I hope that it will be enough, Izuku said, looking at the sky. Well, do you think I could help you in the hard labor? Toshinori asked. What do you get out of it? Izuku asked, cautious. I only wish to help. I couldn't stop this threat from getting out of hand, and I will be damned to see you 3 young souls get taken before your time. I have a few people with me hiding in UA, and they can come over and help you all build your wall tomorrow. I merely ask that me and a couple of my people can come by and stay with you to keep you all safe. After all, we are heroes, Toshinori said. Will you all help on your side of this deal? Should I provide a small apartment for you all? Izuku asked one more time. I promise on my life as a hero that I will not allow you to be hurt in any way. I will personally make sure that you 3 are most definitely not harmed as well as not be kicked out from your own place of stay. Toshinori said, smiling happily at them. Well, you have until tomorrow in order to get them. Just know that I have all the information you need against the dead right now. I will withhold the information until your group comes here. Once you're all there I will set you up with a small apartment in the complex I currently live in. But you will either have to deal with the higher floor or the ground floor. Izuku said. I thank you for this opportunity, young Midoriya. I will bring them tomorrow. For now let's collect some supplies from here to begin your building, Toshinori said, entering his All Might form. For the remaining hours of the day the 4 could be seen collecting as much supplies as well as metals from the beach as possible. As soon as they returned to the area where Izuku lived, All Might noticed something alarming to himself about Izuku. He seemingly didn't have his mother nearby as he was all alone. He really hoped that his mother was still alive in his home. "Alright, All Might, you can leave the stuff in the yard. I really don't want to be the cause of your death by being chewed apart," Izuku said, staring at the hero as he placed the supplies down. "If you don't mind me asking, my boy, where is your mother? Is she alright?" All Might asked. "I don't know, she left for work on the day that this all happened. She hasn't returned ever since then, and I couldn't even know if she was alive or dead. If I'm being honest, the only place she could be is at the Musutafu General Hospital, as it was where she worked as a nurse," Izuku said, looking away. All Might looked at the boy's body language and felt that he crossed a line. "I'm sorry for your loss, or if she is alive, I can make sure that she is alive on my way back to the school." "What does she look like?" All Might asked. "Sure, and thank you. She is a small fluffy woman with long green hair with the same eye color as mine. She is very worried about family as well as cries a lot. Essentially she is a female version of me but shorter and plumper," Izuku said, walking into his home. All Might nodded his head as he jumped away from the area in order to look at the hospital. "All Might Pav, I jumped away from the boy's location as I made my way back to the hospital he mentioned. I may have been in Musutafu for only a couple days, but I memorized the map that covers the entire Musutafu area. I got close to the hospital and searched for the looks of the woman that the boy talked about. I soon after found who I was looking for, and I couldn't help but worry." All Might's perspective third Pav All Might had landed near the Musutafu hospital as he stared through the windows as he saw Izuku Midoriya walking around the hospital. But she wasn't the person that Izuku mentioned to him. She was something worse, as she had pieces of her body gone as well as a missing arm. Her face showed her beautiful features as well as her dulled white eyes showed her once green eyes. Her hair was pulled apart as if something tried to get to her brain. Not to mention that her stomach was wide open for the world to see. All Might took a picture in order to show it to Izuku so that he doesn't grieve over her corpse and come here to find it himself. He jumps away as he makes his way over to the UA campus. On his way through the campus yard he finds himself looking at the remaining members of the UA staff. The students had all left during the start of the apocalypse, that they all didn't know what happened to them all. They heard that Lemillion had stayed with Sir Night-Eye as they fought the undead to the best of their ability. But that wasn't the worst part. Night-Eye was taken down almost instantly as Lemillion was out trying to save civilians as he fought the dead on his own. All Might felt bad that he couldn't reconcile with his former sidekick as they had split apart in order to find himself a successor. But since this whole thing happened, he couldn't find himself one, and he found Izuku and Mei surprisingly not far away from UA. He entered the school only to find that some of the staff was walking around aimlessly, like they lost all kinds of determination to take back what was once the world of heroes. He walked up to the first one he saw, Shota Aizawa. He lost one of his best friends as they fought the undead during a mission to get some supplies for the school. The friend he lost was Present Mike, and they were on the mission themselves when it all went to shit, and he couldn't handle leaving his last friend behind. He found the dead a few days later with Present Mike in their little herd and killed them all and finished Present Mike himself. He couldn't let the man stay undead the entire time and wouldn't forgive himself if he allowed it to continue. "Yagi, what happened out there? You took a lot longer than usual," Shota said, looking at him emotionlessly. "I found some survivors out there, Shota," All Might said, staring into Shota's eyes, as they lifted a little before going back into their usual scowl. "We aren't having them come here, are we?" he asked. "No, this place has given us the time to outlast the beginning, but it can't stay up forever. With the power outages we can't continue this forever. So I found these survivors who are in the process of beginning to build a wall around their block. It isn't far from here. I need everyone to meet in the teacher's lounge," All Might said, leaving. A few minutes later all that remained of UA was in the teacher's lounge as All Might looked at them. The remaining members was Midnight, Vlad King, Snipe, Smintos, and finally Chio. The rest had died when they left the safety of UA. And now that the leader of UA was dead, the place was no longer safe. And they couldn't keep it running since the dead would be brought to it like a moth to a flame. "I found some survivors out there," All Might started. "There's more survivors?" Midnight asked, surprised. Yes, they're young, very young. All Might said, as he watched the other teachers' faces lose their color. What are they doing out all alone? How old are they? Chio asked, concerned. They are around 6 for the youngest and 14 at the oldest. All Might said. Chio lost her color at the age of 6 being brought up. What happened to the 6-year-old? Aizawa asked. The boy with them found her running from the dead, said he allowed her in at the start and have been together for weeks. All Might informed. Are they doing well in terms of health? Chio asked. Yes, they are as healthy as you can be in this apocalypse. All Might said. What are they doing out there? Snipe asked. They were collecting supplies to build a barrier around their little block of the street. I believe that they have enough food to last them a little while. But there is one glaring problem with one of them. All Might said. What is the problem? Vlad King asked. We cannot take over the small block because of the fact that they're kids, but the worst part is the fact that as soon as I go back there. I have to tell the boy that his mother is dead. All Might said. His mother is dead? Chio asked, concerned more now. Yes, he said his mother had left for work at the start of the whole thing and hadn't come back since. He gave me her looks as well as what she was wearing at the time, and I personally think you should all look. All Might said, showing them the picture. They were immediately disgusted at the fact that the boy's mother was torn apart to where she could barely walk, but to be one of them. That was a horrible fate. But now to the problem at hand, how to tell him that his mother was killed off at the hospital. They didn't know what to say. I will be telling him the truth that his mother didn't make it as she was turned within the week most likely. But he will be emotionally hurt, so we will need to tread carefully. All Might said. Why are you talking as if we are going to leave and move to his area? Snipe asked. As much as I wish to stay here, this place is becoming more and more unstable for us to stay here. We would have to go across the city in order to get supplies at this rate, and if we continue doing that. All Might said, pausing to let it sink in for them. We will be running ourselves ragged and get ourselves killed. Vlad said, sighing. Why would we move over to where the kid lives? Didn't you say he doesn't live that far from us? Aizawa asked, confused. He does live nearby, but at most with me jumping around it will take at least 15 minutes to move around to find him. But if we walk there, it would take about an hour to reach there without drawing attention. All Might said, spoofing back into his skinny form. Well, since we don't really have a choice, should we grab as much supplies as we can? Midnight asked. We need to grab as much supplies as possible in order to move there by the end of the day. All Might said. Is there anything else you would like to tell us? Smintos asked. Actually, yes there is. He said that he had been watching the undead from afar and learned many things about them. He even might have learned how to take one down. All Might said, looking at them. Izuku perspective. Third POV. Izuku was moving some things around the apartment complex as he was preparing the rooms for the heroes that were at UA. He didn't want them to come here and find them not having a good room to sleep in. Mei was in his mother's room already transforming it into a workshop for making tools as well as weapons. She already made some spears as well as bows and arrows. He was building the parts for the wall that would go all around the block in order to make collecting from the homes a lot easier. As he was clearing up the road of the remaining dead that strayed from the herd coming every Monday, he saw some people in the distance. He noticed one of the people being All Might as he ran over to them to introduce himself. Third POV. All Might and his allies were getting close to the block that All Might had told the other heroes about when they all noticed someone running to them calling out All Might's name. As they got a closer look at him, they saw his blushing face as well as his young looks. He couldn't look more than 12 at the moment as he was as thin as a stick. As he stopped in front of the heroes, Izuku looked at the ones there and was confused as to where the other UA staff were. Hey, All Might, where is the rest of the staff? The boy asked. Young Midoriya, I hate to say this, but we are all that's left of the school staff. He said, shocking the boy. Follow me, I can show you to the apartment. I can tell how some of you are tired. Izuku said, walking ahead of them. As they got closer to the apartment, they found Izuku stop at one that looked like a slum apartment. Welcome to my humble abode. This is where I grew up from birth to now, although I opened up the lower and higher floors in order to make up for the amount of people coming. I didn't know how much would be coming though. Izuku rambled. So, do you have any information on the dead? Aizawa asked. Eraserhead is it? Izuku asked, receiving a nod. Well, to tell you the truth, I found out a lot about the dead. They tend to travel in herds like animals. They mostly tend to be worse at night since they are more powerful at that time. Not to mention that even the dead can use the quirks of those that have been killed by them. Although I am not a part of that for some reason, Izuku said, sadly smiling at them. What do you mean by that? Snipe asked, wary. What I mean is that I have been bitten by them, and nothing happened. Izuku said, revealing a bite mark on his back. It looked really old too, but you wouldn't think that he had made the mistake of getting bitten by the dead. How are you still alive? Chio asked, looking at the scar tissue. To be honest, I got lucky. I was surrounded by the dead when a loud explosion came from the town square, and it attracted all of their attention as I was able to escape with the bite mark. I was prepared to end it, but nothing happened. I didn't get sick, nor did I feel the need to eat others. It was like I got bit by an animal. Izuku explained. Sonny, you might be immune to whatever happened. Chio said, surprising him. But I'm quirkless. There is no way that they could turn me. Izuku said, shocking those around him. Why, you're quirkless? All Might asked, confused. Yes, I have the proof in my home. But yeah, I got bit and lived to tell the tale. I never leave at night because of that bite. I go out during the day since it feels like the time first has gotten longer. Do you have any other people in your home? Smintos asked. Yes, 2 girls. One is Mei Hatsume while the other is a 6-year-old little girl named Arie, but I call her Arie-chan. I don't know her last name. I tried to find it online, but she apparently doesn't exist. Izuku said, entering his home. As soon as the door was opened, they found the said little girl running to Izuku as he hugged her. Izu, you were gone for so long I thought the monsters got you. Arie said, melting the hearts of the adults. Arie-chan, I need to talk to these guys, so can you stay near Mei? Izuku asked, receiving a nod from the little girl. She seems to trust you. Midnight said, watching the little girl run off. She really does. I saved her from the dead chasing her on the first day since this whole thing started. She hasn't left my side since then. Also, All Might anything about my mother? He explained and asked. I'm sorry to say, my boy, but she is gone. All Might said, as Izuku looked at him with tears at the brim of his eyes. I knew it. I knew she couldn't make it home. God fucking damn it. Izuku said, sitting down in the chair and crying. As he was crying, Midnight moved over to allow him to hug her as he cried. As he leaned into her touch, he eventually cried himself to sleep. Placing him on the couch, Midnight looked at the others as she made a decision. We need to bring his mother here and bury her. As long as he can see her grave, he can continue on. Midnight said, looking at Aizawa. No, I am not looking for his mother. Do you know what that would do to him? Aizawa said, staring at her. He just heard that his mother is dead, and you really think that he will think properly after that? He will want to find her for himself and make sure that she doesn't suffer anymore. Did you forget that that is what you did? Midnight asked. Sorry, but I am not going out there. I am already a mess. I won't be able to make these kinds of decisions anymore. Aizawa said, heading into the downstairs homes. I will go into one of the apartments downstairs and get some sleep. I will be making some walls around here made of concrete metal. Smintos said, leaving with a yawn. I suggest you stay here, Midnight. You might be the closest thing he could get to a mother figure. All Might said, as Snipe and Vlad followed closely behind him. It wasn't long until Arie came out of the room with Mei, who saw Midnight giving Izuku a lap pillow. If you are prepared for a fuck session when he wakes up, that is your funeral. Mei said, getting something to drink and heading to bed. What does she mean by that? Arie asked. She was just joking, dear. Want me to put you to sleep? Midnight asked. Arie nodded her head as Midnight moved Izuku's head onto the couch and got Arie to bed and read her a bedtime story to get her to sleep. As soon as she placed her to sleep, she went out to the couch to find that Izuku was still sleeping but seemingly having a nightmare now. She moved fast and placed his head on her lap again as she moved her fingers through his hair. His soft and fluffy hair. How does he get his hair this fluffy? Question mark single quote. Midnight screamed in her head. But as soon as she was messing with his hair, Izuku was slowly waking up. As he looked into her eyes, he noticed that her breasts were obstructing his view as he sleepily moved them out of the way with his arm as he stared into her blue eyes. Noticing her ever-growing blush on her face and where his arm was, he immediately yelped and jumped from the couch. What happened? Who are you? And why was your lap so soft? Question mark quote. Izuku whisper screamed since it was late at night. My name is Nimari Kayama, and I am the pro heroine Midnight. You passed out due to emotional exhaustion. And finally, it was because I used lotion on my whole body. Midnight said. Okay, Izuku said, blushing way too much as he was about to pass out again. But it was stopped because he had to tell her something. Did I inform you all that you need my scent to keep the dead off of you guys? Izuku asked, only to receive a shake of her head. Looking outside the window, all he saw was darkness as it seemed like Smentos covered the building with his cement. Well, that's one way to keep the undead out of the place. Izuku's sweat dropped. Midnight looked at him as she asked him a singular question. So, Mei told me that as soon as you would wake up that you would give me a fuck session. She asked, smirking at him. Needless to say, he was not sleeping at all that night. Izuku was outside working on a wall in order to make sure that it wouldn't get broken down as easily. He didn't know how to build one, but he wouldn't be one to not try, so he used some of the wood fencing from his neighbors' homes as he placed them from one side of the block in order to block it off from the dead from going in that direction. As Izuku was working on the wall outside, the other adults were eating some breakfast from the food they brought to the apartment. So, what are we going to be doing today? Midnight asked, yawning. We will be assisting young Midoriya on getting the wall built up today. If I can use my quirk, I can build it easily. Smentos said, looking out the window. He saw Izuku struggling to keep the fencing up as he was placing them in the ground in order to keep them there and keep the undead out. As the others looked out the window, they saw him working on the wall as much as he could. They were in awe of his hard work. He was really trying to make sure the block was ironically blocked off from the dead. Time was soon passing by as Izuku finally managed to get one side of the street blocked off from the road where the dead would come in. Smentos had built tall walls up to 7 feet in height in order to keep the dead out, not to mention it was made out of concrete. Izuku was happy that he was able to make the wall like that, but was concerned about if there was another person out there who could manipulate the ground to where he could enter like Smentos. But he decided to continue like he was as of that moment. As that was happening, Mei had finally finished her weapons that Izuku told her to make as she saw the people of UA Academy there and couldn't help but notice that Power Loader wasn't there. Where is Power Loader? Mei asked the adults. He didn't make it. He was with Nezu when the undead attacked the school. All Might said, sadly. Mei didn't even look away as she nodded her head and got herself some food to eat. Izuku entered the building and got something to drink as they looked to Izuku on what to do. How fast are some of you? Izuku asked. The fastest one of us would have to be All Might because of his versatile quirk, but other than that, it would be Shota. Midnight said, I see. Is there a way some of you could go and get some building supplies from the tool store down the road? Izuku asked. Which tools are you looking for? All Might asked. I am looking for gardening tools as well as some building tools as well. Izuku said, looking at the man. All Might nodded as he left through the front door as Izuku went to sit down on the couch. As he was resting on the couch, he saw the other heroes looking at him, worriedly. What are you worrying about? Izuku asked as Arie waddled up to him and used grabby hands for him to pick her up. Doing so and placing her on his lap, he looked at the heroes. What? Izuku asked, confused. We just never saw a 14-year-old kid acting as a parent for a 6-year-old before. Shota Aizawa said, staring in awe. It's not as easy as you would think, but I have been managing since before I met Mei. But if I can say anything about it, I don't regret allowing her into my home at the start of this. Izuku said, smiling at Arie. It wasn't until later that All Might had returned with the gardening tools with some seeds and some smaller glass panes for a small greenhouse. Thanks All Might, I will get to setting this up tomorrow. I need to make sure that everything is in order beforehand though. Izuku said, walking off. The next day came as Izuku was outside again and placing the wall on the other side of the street, as he had been using some of the metal from the broken cars nearby as he placed them in front of the street, as he even used the cars as a makeshift wall as well at the edges of the road where his smaller wall couldn't get to. Smentos would then come outside and place a cement wall there as well as a door there in order to open and close when they came and went on missions outside of the walls. During this part of the day, Izuku raided the houses nearby as he got as much food and water from them as possible in order to keep them completely stocked. He was soon hit with a dilemma: how would they deal with the undead that couldn't be killed because of their quirk? What would happen if he got bitten by a quirkless undead? His thoughts would be interrupted as a red speck was flying towards him from the sky. He didn't know who this was, but they were coming in fast. As soon as he jumped out of the way, he saw that it was the pro hero Hawks as he was slowly getting up from the ground. "Gah, that hurt like a bitch," the pro hero said, dusting himself off. "Hawks?" Izuku asked. Today was not going well for Hawks, the number 3 hero. He had been looking for supplies so he could survive this as long as possible when he was blasted out of the sky by some blue flames. He looked at the culprit and found Dabi, one of the most dangerous vigilantes out there. As he went to defeat him, the bastard tried to bite him, for some reason. As he beheaded the bastard, he found himself completely confused as to how he was able to kill him so easily. He inspected the body only to find that it was undergoing necrosis and had been for a while. He was instantly worried about his fellow heroes out there and made to fly away, forgetting that some of his feathers had been burned away. As he was flying around the entirety of Japan, he found that everywhere was covered in people attacking the innocent. It was like chaos on Earth, and a man in a suit was at the front with a deformed face and was currently chomping on some unknown hero. Just as Hawks was about to fly away, the deformed face of the villain leading the small army of individuals was onto him as he tried to kill him. Hawks was just barely able to avoid getting bitten by him, but as soon as he threw the bastard to the ground below, he flew away in order to escape. But not before getting hit in the back with something, causing a terrifying crack in his back which caused him to fall to the ground. Landing on the ground, he woke up from the blackout of pain as he stood up. Inspecting himself, he found one of his wings were broken. "Gah, that hurt like a bitch," he said, inspecting his broken and bleeding wing. Hawks," a voice called out behind him. Turning around to find a young 14-year-old kid with green hair with black roots, standing near him with a bandage out. He noticed the teen's eyes, scanning him for anything dangerous. "Don't worry kid, I'm fine. Not bitten at least," he said, causing the kid to calm down a little as he came up to the hero and patched up his wing. "How do you know how to patch me up like that?" Hawks asked. "I wanted to be a doctor, so I learned all that I could in order to do that. Not to mention that I was bullied in school before this whole thing started," Izuku said, looking away. "Do you know what the hell is going on then?" Hawks asked, confused as all hell. "The dead are walking the earth and you are asking me what the hell is happening?" Izuku deadpanned. "I get what you're talking about, but how are they able to use their quirks?" Quote. Hawks asked, bewildered. "I don't know, I have never seen them using any quirks. All I know is that they head towards the nearest set of quirks and kill them, adding them to their numbers." "Were you followed?" Izuku asked. "No, I was blasted out of the sky by some guy in a suit and tie that was incredibly torn apart, and he used an air-compressed blast to do it," Hawks said. "A guy with a suit and tie that was torn apart, not to mention he had an air compression quirk?" Izuku asked. "Yes, then that means that he is dangerous for those who can fly," Izuku said, before asking one more question. "By the way, what did his face look like? So, we can avoid him?" Izuku asked. "His face was deformed, not even his eyes were able to be seen. But he was trying to chomp on me when he literally jumped up to the height of where I was at. It was extremely scary," Hawks said, shivering. "Well, let's get you inside. You need to heal in order to go back out there to find your group," Izuku said. "Group? What group?" Hawks asked. "You don't have a group?" Izuku asked. "No, I was on my own," Hawks said, concerned. "You are not to be alone out there. That is how they kill you," Izuku hissed, dragging the hero into his home to further help him. "Ow, ow 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 ow," Hawks complained. As Izuku sat the hero down at the table, he placed the wing of his in a sling on his back and covered it in bandages, but not to the point of which he couldn't get it to be uncomfortable. "Thanks again, little birdie," Hawks said, finally settling down from his high of adrenaline. "No problem. I just wish to help those in danger. We need to see if there are any more people out there in serious need of help. And we need to do it soon. The more people we have, the more people can defend this place." Izuku said, "I can see that, since you already have the #1 hero here as well as the #1 underground hero here as well." Hawks said, as Izuku blushes from embarrassment. "You shush. Get some rest, that will take about a week of healing. Trying to make sure we don't tire out the old lady," Izuku said, getting a whack to his head. "I am not old, young man. I am still feeling like I am in my 30s. The old woman said. All right, Granny Chio," Izuku complained. "That's better. Now how is your wing doing, Hawks?" Chio asked. "It's feeling a little better, but other than that hurts like a bitch," Hawks said, before getting a whack to the head as well. "What the hell?" Hawks groaned as he stared at Izuku, who pointed in another room. Looking over there, he saw a little girl who was being shy, hiding behind a couch, staring at them as well as listening in on their conversation. Sorry," he said, looking away. The next few weeks went on like normal. That was until Izuku hears banging on his wall to the left of the block as he runs over there and found a few girls looking around. "Is there anyone there? We need your help," a girl with black hair in a ponytail called out. "Who are you?" Izuku yells down to them. "My name is Momo Yaoyorozu, and this is Kyoka Jiro, Ochako Uraraka, and Mina Ashido. We need help because the undead are coming," the girl, now known as Ochako Uraraka, called out, looking down the road as he saw a huge horde coming. "All right, grab my hand," Izuku said, as she grabbed his hand. He pulled her up and placed her next to him as he grabbed Kyoka next as he reached out for Momo, while Ochako reached for Mina. As soon as they got the girls out of harm's way, Izuku brought them into the walls as he led them to a room in the lower portion of the apartment complex. As soon as they were in there, Izuku looked at them with a blush on his face as he looked at them. "I'm sorry to tell you this even after you asked for my help, but in order to protect the people I have here, I need you all to show me if you all have any bites on you," Izuku said, looking away embarrassed. "Why?" Mina asked, incredibly offended at that moment. "I'm sorry, but I don't know you. Not to mention that I did risk myself in allowing you girls in here without consulting the others. I am trying to make sure you don't have bites, as that could only be bad news," Izuku explained. "What are you talking about? What happens when you're bit?" Momo asked, confused. "You don't know?" Izuku asked. "Know what?" Kyoka asked. "Well, if you're bit, you turn within the next few hours. I need to make sure that none of you are bitten. I can bring a female person to see if any of you girls are bitten," Izuku said, causing the girls to look at him like he grew a second head. "Could you repeat that, please?" Ochako asked, worried. "If you're bitten by one of them, you turn," Izuku said, looking at her. The girls then looked at one another before looking at him again. "Want me to bring in a girl so she can see if you have any bites?" Izuku asked, incredibly nervous. Sure," Momo said. Izuku left the room, and not too long later a woman entered the room as she stared at them with a gaze that made them incredibly nervous. "Now then, young ladies, spread 'em," the woman said, as she gazed at them filled with lust. "Take 2, greater than sad face. Now can you girls take off your clothes and show me if there are any bites on you?" the woman asked, as she gave the girls a pointed look. The girls listened to her as Mina hid her left arm behind herself as she didn't want it to be seen. The woman noticed this and pulled out her arm as she noticed the bite on her arm. It was similar to a human bite. "Where did you get this?" the woman asked, seriously. "A perverted dead one bit her as soon as she was in the bathrooms," Ochako said, looking away. "What is your quirk?" the woman asked, curious. "It's acid. I can use it to dissolve anything as well as use it as a lotion," Mina said. "Try to push your acid to the boiling point and have it come out of the bite in your arm," the woman said, urgently. As soon as Mina did, it caused her great pain that she screamed in agony. The girls had gotten covered back up except Mina as Izuku barreled in looking around for the screaming person and found her screaming because of the acid coming out of her bite wound. As soon as he noticed that, he came over to her and placed his hand on her arm as he moved the acid off her arm as it dissolved the bone away, causing it to fall off of her. As soon as that happened, Izuku told her to stop releasing acid, to which she did as Izuku covered her now wristless arm with some bandages and then placed it in a sling. That should be good now. Now, if you don't mind, I will leave the room and inform the others of our guests. Midnight-san, please show the girls to their rooms, Izuku said, leaving the room. As soon as he left the room, Mina noticed that he never saw her naked body, but if he did, he didn't seem to care about it. Why didn't he look at my body? She asked, dejectedly. Well, he isn't one who gets flustered by a naked woman's body. Especially if he has already felt my breasts, Midnight said, smirking at the girl. Wait, he felt you up and you let him? Mina and the girls asked, confused. I did. He was going through a lot during that time. He had received news that his mother was dead and one of the undead. He had been through a lot, not to mention that he has a girl with him who has never heard the words of personal space. Midnight chuckled. Is he the only guy there? Momo asked. Nope, there is All Might, Shota Aizawa, Smintos, and finally Hawks. Midnight said, but before leading the girls off she looked at them one more time with a little tease. But if any of you think about giving him your virginity, you will have to wait until I have my turn with him, Midnight said, chuckling as the girls had become red in the face. Izuku woke up the next morning as he walked out of his room with only his pants on as he moved to go outside. He got out there and found his garden was beginning to grow beautifully. He moved over to the garden as he watered them with his hose. He watered them as he made sure that he had enough water collected from the rain the night prior. As he moved back inside, he found the girls from the previous day standing there looking at him with blushes on their faces. Izuku questioned as he looked down at himself and saw that his upper body was showing his abs as well as the scars on his body. In a cartoonish kind of way, Izuku's face was slowly getting red as he was realizing what was happening before. He ran off leaving some dust behind and got a shirt on and came back out. Sorry about that, forgot that you girls are here, Izuku said, nervously chuckling. As this was happening, Midnight was squealing happily as her plan was slowly working as she was getting the girls hot and bothered. The only one not looking at Izuku was Kyoka as she was staring at Momo's chest. Izuku walked over to Midnight as she looked him over as he was slightly nervous with her. Midnight looked at him with a look that was of confusion as he pulled her away as she noticed he was taking her to his room. As soon as they were in his room, he laid on her lap as he was trying to sleep away the dirty thoughts he was having at the moment. And Midnight wasn't helping him at the moment, making lewd comments in his ear as his face was reddening at a fast pace. As the afternoon showed up, Izuku was taking his mind off what happened that morning with himself and the girls as he was tending to his garden by watering it. He was really glad that he had the seeds to grow carrots, pumpkins, watermelons, and more. As he was still going around the small block, he heard the sounds of moaning coming from outside the walls as he moved closer to them in order to see what the hell was going on. He made it to the top of the wall only to find Hawks there looking a little shocked at what was on the ground on the other side. What's going on, Hawks? Izuku asked. I think you would rather see for yourself, Hawks said, giving Izuku the binoculars. As Izuku was looking through them, he found that an extremely large horde of undead were heading towards his block and he wasn't happy. Hawks, get the others to hide inside the houses as well as apartments and barricade everything, Izuku said, running to sound the alarm. Hawks ran down the stairs of the walls and headed back to the apartment where everyone was staying. While that was happening, Izuku ran over to his portion of the wall and found something that wasn't supposed to be there. Bang! Hawks busted through the door, startling the occupants inside as they screamed as they threw a knife in his direction with him catching it. The dead are coming, stop what you're doing and barricade the building. ? Hawks called out, causing everyone to begin their jobs. Wait, where's Izuku? Ochako asked. He is sounding the alarm. He will be fine. The dead don't register him as food, Hawks said, moving away. What do you mean he isn't registered as food to them? Mina asked, confused. That means that if he gets bitten by them, he doesn't turn, and they would only bite him and not tear him to shreds. Hawks said, getting the barricade materials. This was happening very fast. The undead couldn't have followed him there, right? This was too much stress being placed on their place of safety for their minds to take. As the main lobby was barricaded to hell and back, they found Izuku walking back with a torn shirt as well as a few injuries, but he was overall fine. He ran through his secret entrance that he covered up as soon as he opened it and got inside. As he crawled through the little tunnel, he was just about to exit the tunnel when he heard the sounds of the walls breaking down outside the apartment. Doubling his efforts in trying to get out of the tunnel, he finally made it into the garage of the apartment, and he climbed the stairs to get to higher ground. He found that the lobby was mainly barricaded as it was the thing that they all decided to do, and he made it to his apartment in order to make sure that everyone was safe and sound. As he entered the apartment, he found that they were all hiding in corners with his dirty clothes near them, as some of the girls were disgusted with doing this. "Why didn't you wash your clothes? They stink worse than the dead," Momo Whisper shouted in anger. "Do you want to die?" Izuku asked. "Seriously?" "No, but you seriously need to clean these," she said, angered. "If I were to wash them, you all would effectively be dead, because the undead can't smell you when you smell like a quirkless reject." Izuku shouted. "Why, you're quirkless?" Momo asked, confused. "Yes, I have been ever since the age of 4. Now if you're done complaining about the smell of my clothes, stay the fuck quiet, or else I would toss you out to the damn undead." Izuku shouted at her, causing the other girls to unconsciously move closer to the girl as she was close to crying. Izuku was staring into her eyes as he was filled with an anger that he hadn't felt since he found out Katsuki was only beating him until he was near death when he found out he was quirkless because he didn't want him to die. "Why you wouldn't send her out there to die?" Mina said, confident that Izuku wouldn't kill her like that. "Try me. Everything was going fine before you all arrived here. I can make a split-second decision to toss all of you out of my home right now, and I couldn't care less until later. But the fact that your deaths would be on me is what is causing you all to be safe here for the time being." Izuku snarled, walking away down the hall. Eraserhead and the other teachers of UA heard the yelling as he came out and found Izuku with an uncharacteristic scowl on his face as he stomped to his room. He walked out to the living room to find Momo, Ochako, Mina, and Kyoka all sitting there crying. They didn't even mean to piss him off. They just were not a fan of the smell of his dirty clothes, and merely asked if he could wash them. "You are aware that the undead don't eat quirkless people, right?" Eraserhead asked them. "We had no idea that they didn't do that. We thought they ate everyone and everything exclusively." Mina said. "He really needs to clean his clothes. I don't think that they find him repulsive." Momo said. "Fact of the matter is, he has felt what it was like to have a chunk of himself taken out and eaten, and the simple fact that he is alive shows that they don't eat people like him. So deal with it," Eraserhead said. "I don't think that this place is safe. What happens if we are just going to be used as sex toys or even worse bait for the undead?" Mina asked. "I feel like we should stay leery of Midoriya. I just don't feel safe around him," Kyoka said, shaking her head. "Are you all just forgetting the fact that he could have just left us outside the walls here? He saved our lives, and you are all just thinking that he is going to do something bad to us all." Exclamation mark quote. Ochako Whisper shouted. "What do you think then? How do you know that he won't ask us to split our cheeks and fuck us 3 ways to Sunday then?" Kyoka asked, irritated with Ochako's neutral attitude. "Well, I know for one thing he could have left us out there to die. Not to mention the fact that if you paid any attention to what he was yelling about, he would feel guilty about sending us out there and we died," Ochako said, making the girls give her a deadpan look. "You really think that he wasn't being serious about what he was talking about? People change in this kind of world. I personally think that he was rude in the world before and now is trying to score points." Mina said. "Are you all not getting it? He could have left us out there. We could be dead, undead, or torn to shreds and who knows what else. But I would rather be his bitch than anything else because I only wish to live," Ochako said, cursing to her friends. "You would rather be his sex toy than take your chances out there?" Kyoka asked, bewildered. "Unlike all of you, but if you paid attention, he just stated that he was quirkless. How do you all think the quirkless generation of people are treated?" Ochako asked, angrily. They are probably treated better than those with mutation quirks or quirks like mine. Kyoka and Mina said at the same time. Wrong, they are treated worse than if they were us. They are abused, tortured, as well as suicide baited every single day of their lives. You want to know what I think about Izuku? He is a strong young man who has suffered the ill effects of this rotten society because of something he couldn't control. If I have to be his slut in order to stay alive in the slightest, then I will do my best to be his personal cum dumpster in order to fulfill that wish. Ochako said, walking away from them. As the girls were watching as one of their own walks away, they were beginning to think about what the hell is happening when there was a harsh blow to the building in the lobby. Izuku was seen rushing to the kitchen where he placed his camera systems to look in the lobby. Shit 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 shit, Izuku muttered, pulling out a machete. As he moved closer to the front door, he looked at the girls who looked at him with fear since he was holding a weapon. He stared at them for a moment before a brief moment of sadness washed over him. He looked down as he thought about what he was going to say to them, and as he looked at them it was a small smile as he spoke. If you wish to leave this place of safety so much, then you can choose to leave in the morning. With the amount of undead here it will be impossible to do so right now. If you would like to stay, that is on you, but I would never have someone be a slut in order to keep themselves alive. That is their decision to do. I give the people here a choice. Live or die, stay or leave. But the only rule you have is to listen to what I say, or there will be consequences. The reason that my dirty clothes aren't washed is because my smell is the only thing that causes them to leave those with quirks alone and forgotten. They don't even register that you have a quirk because my quirkless smell is stronger than yours. If you wish to leave, then that's your decision and choice. But I will feel guilt that I couldn't help you if you go out and die a few days later. Izuku said, walking out the front door. Izuku was running down the stairs as he found himself looking at a small horde that managed to break through the lobby's barricade. He pulled out his machete and started to slice and dice them until he found the one person that he wished wasn't a part of the horde. His own mother. She was limping around with parts of her left leg gone all the way to the bone. She was also looking as skinny as she was when he was 4. As she turned into his direction, he walked slowly up to her as she moved to him. As she took a bite of his shoulder as he hugged her, she spat it out in disgust and tried to pull away. I'm sorry that I couldn't save you, Mom, Izuku said, as he looked into her eyes. Her soulless eyes, that used to be sea green but have life in them now being dulled and gray. I'm sorry that you couldn't come home and be with your worthless, quirkless, reject of a son. I'm sorry that you can't see me grow up anymore. Mom, why did you leave me? Izuku asked, crying as he held her close to him. The other undead had left the two alone as they continued down the street and broke down the other wall and left. All that was left was Izuku and his mother hugging it out. Why did you have to go to work on that day? I can't do this without you, Mom. Izuku cried on her shoulder. As soon as he was near full-on wailing, his mother caught movement in the corner of the room as she moved to go see what it was. Izuku, looking over to see what it was, found it was Kyoka as she was looking at him with shocked eyes. And as soon as he realized what his mother was about to do, he killed her undead form to prevent her from attacking. Why were you hugging that thing? Kyoka asked, as she stared into Izuku's eyes. You shouldn't have been there eavesdropping. I was talking to my mother, and she died in the start of this mess. So you tell me why you think that I was talking and hugging my mother. Izuku looked at her with a pained expression. Are you a secret necrophiliac? She asked, completely angered. That was my mother. You really think that I would fuck anything that moves? ? Izuku yells, as he moved away from the girl as he replaced the barricade. Well, do you? Kyoka asked, yelling as well. And as calm as can be, he looked in her direction as he walked closer to her, and as soon as she was backed against the wall, his height was causing her to tremble. Sure, she could use her quirk on him, but she was too scared to even use it. I suggest you pack your things with the other girls. If you keep on thinking that I am just some guy who you think would fuck you girls in your sleep, I will have you know that there are even worse people out there. Izuku threatened as he walked back to his apartment. I am so going to kill him if he threatens the other girls. Kyoka said, walking back. As Izuku entered the apartment, he walked past the girls that were on the couch as they were fearful of his wrath. Not only that, but Ochako was the only one to see that he was bitten on the shoulder with a chunk missing. "Midoriya, are you okay?" Ochako said, with worry. "Don't worry about it, I can cover it up, at least I don't have to worry about turning into one of those things," Izuku said, tear stains on his cheeks. As he walked to the end of the hallway into the bathroom, Kyoka entered the apartment as she was completely scared shitless as well as she was trembling. "What happened, Kyoka?" Mina yelled, running over to the trembling girl. "He told me that if I continue like I was then he suggested that I should pack my things with you girls," Kyoka said. "Anything else?" Momo asked. "He told me that if I keep on thinking that he is just some guy who I think would fuck us girls in our sleep, he will have me know that there are even worse people out there," Kyoka said, trembling. "Did something else happen?" Momo asked, concerned. "He was hugging one of those monsters. It bit into his shoulder and for some reason spat out his flesh. But the worst part was that he was calling that thing his mother. He was saying that it was his mother and not some monster that would have killed me if he hadn't killed it himself. I'm sure that if he was still in his moment with it he would have allowed it to kill me," Kyoka said, packing her things. "I can't stay here if he is that mentally unstable," Mina said, packing her things with Momo. As the girls were thinking about leaving, they looked at Ochako as they saw her just standing there not packing. "Aren't you coming with us?" Kyoka asked, confused. "You really are just as bad as the others in this newer world," Ochako said, walking away. Izuku came out of the bathroom to find Ochako standing there as she was looking at him. "Did you threaten Kyoka?" Ochako asked. "I only stated to her the truth. And in terms of kicking them out, I did threaten her with that," Izuku said, sighing. "Why?" she asked. "She walked in on a moment between me and one of the undead." "It was my mother," Izuku said, showing a picture of a younger Inko Midoriya. Ochako looked at the mother of Izuku and she looked at him and saw his eyes tearing up again. "What happened to her?" she asked. "She went to work the day all of this started. She works at the general hospital nearby. I saw her many times when I was scavenging for food and supplies over the starting weeks. She always waved at me, but now that she is dead, I don't know what to do. She was the only thing that kept me together. The only thing preventing me from seppuku," Izuku explained. "What about Arie?" Ochako asked. "She came over on the 6 days when this all started. I was on my last legs that day already thinking of suicide. My mom was the only one who never left my side when I was pronounced quirkless, and she stayed by my side through all the things that happened in my life. And now that she is gone, I don't know," Izuku said, sobbing now. He was truly broken now that he saw his mother in the flesh, not to mention he had to kill her undead counterpart. He knows that it wasn't her entirely, but it still hurt to have to put down his own mother since she was the light of his life, the only person who would stay by him and make him happy. Now with her gone, he can't continue any longer, he just wants it to end. People he saves, they hate him and think that he is some rapist and wants him to leave them alone. People he gives a second chance to make things right and recover a relationship with him. They die before they could be redeemed and he can't lose another person. If he does, then he can't live with himself. He sobbed on the floor as Ochako didn't know what to do, so she sat down next to him and placed his head on her lap as she rubbed his head. Listen to the music here. Hush little baby, don't you cry. Mama's gonna make you a birthday pie. Even though daddy's not here right now, Mama's gonna be here for the night. Even if Mama's not here with you, she will be with you forever in your heart. Please make sure that you are brave. 'Cause Mama hopes you will save them from themselves. You should be the little hero that I know you will be. Now hush little baby, don't you cry. Mama's gonna love you for all her life." As Ochako finished the song, she found that Izuku was passed out from the song as well as the stress. She smiled sadly as she looked down at him as she moved his hair out of his face as tears were streaming down his eyes. She then carried him to his room where she placed him there so he could rest for the night. It was already dusk out and just as she was about to leave. Izuku's hand softly grabbed hers and pulled her in his bed. Leaving the poor girl blushing madly, she looked at his face as it showed a sad as well as fearful expression in his sleep. As she was slowly falling asleep, She found the other girls looking at her with an angered expression as they left the doorway and left the place of safety. The next morning Izuku woke up with his eyes feeling like they had just entered a desert, and he got up from his bed. He looked around his room to find Arie sleeping in her little bed with Mei as he turned around to find Ochako sleeping in his bed. Wah! Izuku couldn't finish his shocked screech. It was enough to wake up Ochako though. What time is it? Ochako asked, confused. Girl in my bed. What happened? Did I do something to her last night? No, that couldn't have happened. Did I take advantage of her in my lowered mental state? Izuku thought of the many possibilities. Hey, are you okay? You were extremely down in the dumps last night. You even pulled me into the bed last night to prevent your nightmare from continuing. Ochako asked. Why yeah. Let's go see if your friends are still here. Izuku said, pulling her out of the bed. As she was walking with him, they found a note on the counter as it stated that they took all of the food with them as they left in the night, all while thanking him for the safe place to sleep for the nights that they were there. How could they? Ochako yelled, in anger. Don't worry, if they left during the night that means that they couldn't have gotten very far. Izuku said. What do you mean? Ochako asked. They are more powerful in the night. Not to mention the fact that their senses are a lot stronger as well during the night. Izuku said, getting some better clothes on for scavenging. Oh, are they okay though? Ochako asked. Not really, from what happened yesterday it is very likely that they are dead. Izuku said, finishing his correct scavenging clothes requirements. He looked at Ochako as if she was going to stay here. Are you coming with me or not? Izuku asked. I would rather stay safe with the girl who can make weapons as well as the teacher that can fight with different martial arts, sorry. Ochako said, glumly. Don't worry, I don't take offense to that. I would be better at getting supplies, alone anyway. See you when I return. Izuku said, leaving the building. See you, Ochako said, before someone came up behind her. As Izuku walked around the neighborhood he found out that the girls were indeed very much dead as they had been found torn to shreds on the ground not even far from the broken down gate. Seriously, I give them the chance to survive the night as well as wait for the undead to leave, and they just leave at the worst possible time. Izuku muttered, collecting all the bags of clothes and food. As he was walking back to his gate, he found a dog slowly walking behind himself. What is your name, little guy? Izuku asked, getting the dog's attention. Barf. The dog barked. I see, you don't have a name. Izuku said, as the dog nodded its head. Well, I guess I can name you Shiro. Izuku said, as the dog barked and followed him. I hope everything is going fine at the base. Izuku thought to himself. Izuku re-enters the building with Shiro, the dog he found out on the street, as they enter the main lobby of the apartment building. He was walking through it as he came upon his dead mother's corpse, and he looked at Shiro as the dog was seemingly looking at the dead corpse as well. Don't worry Shiro, she's long gone. She won't wake up ever again. Izuku said, with a broken tone. He found himself entering the apartment to find Ochako and Arie eating breakfast while Mei was building weapons at the table. Morning girls, Izuku said, walking in with the food and supplies. Hey, are you okay? Did you find the girls? Ochako asked, concerned. Yeah, they didn't make it very far from the broken gate. They were torn to shreds, couldn't become one of those things at least. Izuku said, as he watched the girl's eyes begin to water. I'm sorry that it came to that, I was only trying to look out for them. Izuku said, looking away waiting for the slap, but it never came as he felt arms wrap around him. He looked into Ochako's eyes as she looked him in the eyes as she asked him a question. Why do you act like whatever you do is something that you need to be punished for? She asked, concerned for him. Because I was born quirkless, the world made it its mission to make sure that whatever I did was something that I needed to be punished for. From the age of 4 I was abused by my peers, mentally challenged by the ones who had quirks, not to mention accused of many things that I had never even done. So I guess, it was still ingrained in me to think that no matter how I try to change things I still wait for myself to be punished. Izuku said, looking at Ochako. Oh God, just kiss already and have sex. Mei called out, watching them. After hearing this both blushed really hard as they screamed out her name as they were embarrassed since they were having a moment. Jesus problem child, I never thought that you'd have this much difficulty asking for a girl to have sex with you. Aizawa said, grumbling. He had gotten his coffee and was drinking it when he overheard their talk as he moved to head to the lobby. Don't worry about your mother's corpse. Me and All Might will bury her in the backyard so that she can rest easy. Aizawa said, thank you Aizawa-san. Please inform Smentas about the breach in the walls. Izuku said, walking off with Ochako. Will do, problem child. Aizawa said, walking off. Outside the building, All Might and Aizawa were digging a grave as they saw the dead body of Izuku Midoriya. I can't believe that young Midoriya has lasted this long without his mother. But there is something that I don't get. All Might said, gaining the attention of Aizawa. What is it? He asked, pushing his shovel into the dirt as he pulled out some of it. Where is young Midoriya's father if his mother is here in Japan as well as being dead? All Might asked. From what Izuku had told me, his father abandoned them as soon as he was found out to be born quirkless. But he still was kind enough to send them money for child support. It just sucks that the money he got doesn't account for anything anymore. Aizawa said, as they finished clearing up the area for the grave. I know, it just confuses me that people would just give up their child all because of something they couldn't control. It makes me sick to the stomach that I don't have any more at the fact that people abandon their children because of something as useless as a diagnosis of being quirkless. All Might said, I know, but the statistics all around the world state that Japan's quirkless population has been getting bullied to the point of suicide and Izuku is lucky to have even made it this far in his life. Aizawa said, cryptically, what do you mean? All Might asked, placing Inko in the grave. Well, the quirkless population never make it to high school age anymore because of the suicide baiting as well as the abuse they get from their peers. Aizawa said, covering the body of Inko. They continue to cover the corpse until they hear a noise coming from the brush of a bush nearby. All Might get into a fighting position as he notices something moving in the brush. Aizawa called the alarm. There might be one of the dead still here. All Might called out. Aizawa ran off to sound the alarm when the thing hiding in the bushes comes out and reveals itself to All Might. I thought you were dead. All Might said, confused as hell. Aizawa ran through the building as he was searching for Izuku. He couldn't understand how it was this hard to find a 14-year-old kid. He continued to run all around the building when he overheard a conversation. I know that I am not worthless. But I can't help but feel like it all the time since there seems to be nothing that I can do in order to change the past. The voice said, as a feminine was also heard. Izuku, you need to learn that no matter what you do, there is nothing worse than thinking about the worst case scenario as well as thinking those kinds of thoughts as it wasn't your fault. The feminine voice called out. I can't help it Ochako. I forced them to think that I was a threat to their safety and I only blame myself for pushing them to that point because of the fact that my mind has been broken down to the point that I think suicide is the best case scenario to end this miserable life of mine. I have no quirk, I have no friends, I lost my mother at the start of this god-forsaken mess, and people are just too afraid of me because they just can't see the fact that I was not what they thought I was. I have lived my life thinking that I was worthless because of those around me constantly telling me so with that stupid name Bakugo gave me as a kid. I can't stand living like this any longer. My mom is dead, I don't know where my dad is nor do I ever want to know where he is. I have a little girl who looks to me for every and all answers that come to every problem that we face. I have multiple girls that make me feel things I have never even felt before in my life. Not to mention this bullshit that happens to my groin at night where there is constant pain and I can't stop it. So please tell me what to do so I can do my hardest to stop the pain from continuing. Quote. Izuku yelled, before Aizawa heard a slap sound. Feeling better now? Ochako asked. Not really, Izuku said, before Aizawa heard the distinct sound of her hand raising up again. Let's just see what Aizawa-san wants, Izuku said, as he walked near the door. Just as he was about to open the door Aizawa walked inside the room as he looked at both of them. Izuku was sporting a bruise on his cheek as he was crying profusely, and Ochako had her face reddened as she was in close proximity to Izuku, and her mind couldn't take it. Two things. 1. You need to get serious help about that issue with your mentality. 2. There seems to be another one of the dead inside the walls remaining from the horde that came by. Aizawa said, as Izuku's eyes widened as he ran out of the room grabbing his machete. You did the right thing, Uraraka. Aizawa said, moving towards the door. Really? Ochako asked. Yes, if he was allowed to continue with that self-deprecating mindset, he would have got himself killed and everyone here would be saddened by his absences. Aizawa said, leaving the room. By the way, just fuck him already. If he is telling you about the raging boner he gets at night, then you need to help him take care of it. Aizawa yelled, causing the poor girl to become too embarrassed. Hound dog. How are you alive? All Might called out. I was attacked with Principal Nedzu when we were on our way to the Hero Commission. I made it out with Principal Nedzu, but we got separated on the way to this part of the neighborhood. The pro-hero said, stumbling into the place. Are you bitten at all? All Might asked, worried. No, they all tried to chomp me, but I managed to maneuver around them all and killed them all in one hit. What the hell is happening to the world? He asked, confused and tired. All Might. A young voice called out. Young Midoriya. I need your assistance. All Might called out, dragging Hound Dog. Izuku dropped his weapon as he ran over to assist the number 1 hero. As they dragged him closer to the building, Izuku looked over his injuries. How did you survive? I thought that the dead went after all of the people with quirks. Izuku asked, bewildered. They go after those with quirks? Hound Dog asked, as he was sat down on the couch in the lobby. Izuku was patching his body up as he nodded his head. I've watched them over the months since this whole thing started and it wasn't pretty. They can use the quirks of those who they have killed. I was barely able to survive this long, and ever since then I had been meeting with people who have been out there on their own. Izuku said, I thank you for your assistance, young man. I believe you could become a great doctor if you gave it a try. Hound Dog said, smirking. I could, but all my life I had always wanted to become a hero. But everyone told me I couldn't because of something I couldn't control. Izuku said, let me guess, you don't have a useful quirk or any at all. He asked, as Izuku nodded. I don't have a quirk to use to become a hero. But I have been protecting this place with my life. Also, the dead don't like quirkless individuals. They take a bite out of someone like me, and they spit it out. Not to mention that I still feel the pain of their bite, and they can't make me turn into one. Izuku explained. Well, I guess Chio will have a field day in curing the human race. Hound Dog said, as everyone became somber. What happened? He asked. Chio Shuzenji had died just a few days ago. She died of old age as well as too much stress on her body. All Might said, solemnly. Well, at least she taught someone her skills, right? Hound Dog asked. Yes, she taught young Midoriya everything she knows. And I am glad that he took her lessons to heart. All Might said, as Aizawa entered the room to see Hound Dog. Is he one of them? Aizawa asked. No, he is very much alive. Unless I found that the cure is in my blood. But that would be preposterous. Izuku said, chuckling. Well then, good to have you back. Hound Dog. Aizawa said. You are too. I thought all of you were dead since the school was ransacked as well as cleared of everything. Hound Dog said. Yeah, they moved everything here. With the power going out, you would have to rely on solar power there. Meaning that you'd have to do everything in the daylight. Izuku said. And this apartment complex is a much safer place to be. Hound Dog asked. The school's gates had been breached as the undead had managed to get inside Hound Dog. Almost all of the school staff are dead. Present Mike, Snipe, 13, Vlad King as well as most of the students have been killed off. We are all that's left of the school. All Might said, solemnly. Also, when you get back into your groove, you might want to give this young man some therapy. Since he was quirkless during this age, you should know the statistics. Aizawa said, earning a nod from the counselor. What happened to the other people at the school? The students, I mean. Hound Dog asked. They were either on an internship as well as a work study or they were killed by the undead. I still haven't heard back from Sir Night-Eye and Mirio Tagata. I guess it's safe to assume that the undead got to them. It will be hard to kill something that can become intangible as well as someone who can see the future. Hound Dog said, grumbling. Well, you can stay here as long as you want. I don't care about where you will sleep. Just as long as you keep noise to a minimum. Izuku said, getting up and walking away. I guess I will remain here until Principal Nezu arrives. Hound Dog said, as the ground was dug up. I am here. A voice called out as a white animal had appeared from the ground. Ah! All Might screamed. Aizawa used his scarf to bind up the animal as they all realized that it was Nezu. Jesus Christ! I almost had a heart attack. All Might called out. Don't worry, I'm sure young Midoriya can deal with that. By the way, where is the boy? Nezu asked. 1. Izuku was seen walking to the roof of the building where he saw hawks looking over the horizon. You know, this breeze is beautiful. It just sucks that Endeavor went out fighting the horde. Hawks said, smoking a cigarette. Really? Izuku asked. He went out in a blaze of glory. He blew up quite literally the All Might statue as he was cornered there. He completely destroyed his body as well as killed all the dead that was starting to consume him. Hawks said, sadly, I never really liked him as a hero, but as a man who cleared so many cases against villains, I respect him in that way. I just don't condone his actions of kill first ask questions later. Izuku said, earning a nod as well as a puff of smoke to the face. Well, thank you for the bandages. I believe that I should look for Rumi. She would no doubt be looking for a challenge from these things. She would get herself killed that way because she would tire herself out. I will send her here in order to keep her safe. Hawks said, why are you not coming back? Izuku asked. Because I need my little revenge on the bastard leading the group that destroyed the walls of yours. As soon as I take him out I will return. But if I don't, make sure that I am not capable of finding this base of yours. Hawks said, walking back into the building. In the middle of the city, we find a rabbit-eared woman with tan skin as well as a cottontail fighting a villain named Muscular. But something was off about him. He was trying to bite her as she kept kicking him away. This is the best fight I have ever gotten. But you are already dead. She called out. We then see her look as she had undead blood all over her as there was a large amount of ripped off body parts on the ground as she stared into the distance as she heard movement near the wall in Musudafu. Alright, another round, she called out, jumping away. Third paw of Mirko's position. Mirko was jumping from wall to wall as she was attacking the undead left and right. She had even fought a small midget of an old man with a white suit that had bits of yellow and a yellow cape on it. He even used his quirk to keep up with Mirko, but in the end his old decrepit body couldn't keep up with her as she smashed his head in with her foot on the ground. Take that, you old geezer. You just never learn nowadays, huh? Mirko taunted as she saw the blood spilling out. Damn, he was one of those freaks. I really need someone to help me out over here, these things are starting to become too overwhelming. But that is nothing but a challenge, Mirko stated, jumping off once more. As she was jumping from roof to roof, she found someone who was fighting the undead. He was kicking as well as slashing their heads off without much trouble. But the main issue was the simple fact that he was surrounded. She jumped off to assist the young man who was fighting for his life in the horde of undead. As she smashed down on one of the undead, she kicked another with a roundhouse kick, before backflip kicking two undead into the air as the young man used this to combo into him leaping off the wall and smashing his leg into both of them. Just when it seemed like they were going to be overwhelmed, the young man pulled out a grenade as he pulled Mirko away and behind some plywood as the explosion went off. The young man and Mirko looked at one another as they pulled the plywood off themselves and got up from the ground. I can't believe that worked, the young man said, looking at Mirko. You have some skill in fighting there, young man. What's your name? Mirko asked. My name is Izuku Midoriya. The now named Izuku said, looking at the heroine. Why you should get out of here, Mirko. The undead go after those with quirks. Izuku said, moving to collect his things. You were telling me to run away from a potential fight. Exclamation mark quote. Mirko yelled, shish, we can't allow ourselves to be heard by them. Not to mention that you need to get some rest. Even I know that you can only hold out so long with your quirk being rabbit related. Rabbits aren't known for their endurance, they are known for the power behind their legs. Izuku said, moving around the alleyway. Well, what are you doing out here then? Shouldn't they be coming after you as well? Mirko asked, angered. Nope, they only came to me because I was the only thing in the vicinity. Thanks for the save by the way. But if you need to get some rest, which likely will be soon. Here is a small area where a wall is built. I and some others will be there to provide a bed as well as some food and fresh water for you. Izuku said, giving her a map. Alright, why are you giving me a map? Mirko asked. Because you're not well known in this area, not to mention you are more attuned to the cities. This is a suburban area where I live. I was able to clear out the area as well as collect some food and supplies in that specific area and close it off from the undead. The only way inside is to be with me or someone who already is alive in there, or by an undead who can manipulate the ground to the point the walls would be useless. Izuku said, walking away. Well, I might see you later then, little shit. See you later, Mirko said, jumping off. As she disappeared from sight, Izuku looked at his radio as he pulled it out and talked to who was on the other side of it. This is, Sigh little rabbit. Come in, Izuku said, blushing. This is Red Bird, hear you loud and clear. The person on the other side of the radio said. Rabbit is incoming, she is heading over towards Central Musudafu. Please keep her safe from the undead. You're the only one I can trust in getting her to the base fast enough should she get bit. Little Rabbit out, Izuku said, turning off the radio. Will do, Little Rabbit. Red Bird out, the person on the other side of the radio said. Please keep her safe, Hawks. I need to be out here collecting supplies so that everyone else can survive. Izuku said, continuing his search for food and water. Deep in downtown Musudafu, Mirko is seen fighting many undead at the same time as she kicks and punches them to bits. Ha, now this is how I like it, she yelled out, as she smashed undead brains in. Although high into the sky there was someone flying overhead watching from above, it was Hawks. He had managed to find her, although it wasn't hard to find her since she loves to yell at her opponents. He was flying for a bit when he noticed the undead that shot him out of the air a while back, and he was pissed at seeing that the bastard was still alive. He pulled out two powerful feathers that sharpened into blades as he launched himself towards the threat as he stabbed the bastard in the face. But something was wrong with this one, since he could seemingly shrug off the instant kill completely without acting like it could kill him. Hawks was sent flying into a building as the undead walked over to him, and Hawks saw a foot coming in to knock him out, when another foot sent the undead flying into the distance as his body got shredded by the buildings he went through. Hey there, Hawks, didn't think you'd make it, a familiar voice called out. He looked up and found Mirko standing there looking at him with a smirk on her face. He shrugged his shoulders, getting the dust off of them as he stared at her. Well, we need to take that bastard out. I think we would have to disintegrate him into nothing. He keeps healing back what was destroyed. Hawks informed. So we need a quirk that can disintegrate things. Where the hell are we going to find someone like that? Mirko asked, agitated. Well, you found him right here, a voice called out from behind. Both heroes turned to look behind them and found a young man with scraggly light blue hair whose face was looking like the worse for wear. Who are you? Hawks called out. Someone who will be willing to help, the young man said. 1. Meanwhile, on the other side of Musudafu, Izuku was entering a building that was like a shopping mall. He found the food court as he was searching for food, water, clothes, as well as other necessities. He was keeping a lookout since he was the only one here. He didn't want to run into other people out here. Who knows what will happen if they aren't right in the mind. As he collected the last of the food that he could hold, he turned around and came face to face to one of the undead. It stared at him with a weird look, before smelling him and walking away. "Chi, that's new," Izuku stuttered as his heart raced. "I need to get out of here before more of those things get here." Izuku thought to himself. He was running around the mall when he found a little boy and a young woman running from the undead. "Don't look at them, Izuku, they're none of your concern," Izuku thought to himself as he continued down the road. "Where is everybody? Where is Ragdoll, Tiger, and Pixie Bob?" The mature woman called out in fear. "Damn it," Izuku screamed in his head. "Over here, follow me," Izuku called out, gaining the woman and child's attention. They ran over to him as he led them back to his base of operations. "Do you know where my friends are?" the mature woman asked. "What are their names?" Izuku asked, concerned. "They are Tiger, Pixie Bob, and Ragdoll," the woman said, in concern. "I haven't seen them, but you will be safe at the base of operations that I made. It's not much, but it will be a place for the little boy to be safe." It's not safe out here, especially at night, Izuku said, leading them to the walls around the corner. How come you are out here then? The young boy asked, angrily. Because the undead don't come after me, they would rather take a bite to see if I have a quirk, and if I don't, they spit it out. Izuku said cryptically. What do you mean by that? Question mark. Were you bitten by them? The young boy asked, full of fear. Yes, and just to let you know, it wasn't recent. It was a long time ago. Izuku said, walking towards the walls. Wait, if they don't go after you, why do they go after us? The woman asked. They go after those of you with quirks, they don't go after someone who doesn't even have a reason to be afraid of them. Izuku said, opening the gate's door. Welcome to the small town of Musudafu. What remains of it, I guess. Izuku said, opening the door for them. You built all of this? The woman asked. Yes, but actually no. I came up with the idea of a wall, but someone who had a quirk who dealt with concrete made the walls. I also told him to make sure that they're made with metallic concrete, thereby making sure those who are strong enough to break the wall are specifically strong enough to break it like All Might or have a quirk that can manipulate the earth. Izuku said, leading them around. How many people do you have here? The young boy asked, finally after gaining the courage to talk. Only about 20 people, most consisting of teachers from UA, All Might, Hawks, and soon to be Mirko. But there are also people my age as well as one little girl your age. Izuku informed. Are there any more boys your age here? The woman asked. No, I am the only boy my age inside these walls. Also, you are Mandalay from the Wild Pussycats, right? Izuku asked, curious. Yes, I am. I didn't think that you'd recognize me without my hero suit. Mandalay said, curiously. Well, be prepared for tonight. There will be a horde coming by tonight, and I want everyone inside their rooms and sleeping by then. Izuku said, pulling off his shirt to dry it off. Why do we have to do what you say? The little boy said, angrily. You will do as I say because I can just leave you both out there to die. This place is my home, and I will not be disrespected by you. If you continue this, I will kick you out of the main apartment complex and into one of these houses. If you continue this behavior, I will be forced to kick you out of the walls and into the streets filled with undead. Do you want that? Izuku said, looking at the little boy who was progressively getting more and more fearful up to this point. No, he said, scared. Good, frankly I don't like having to kick people out. The last time that happened they didn't make it 1 mile away from the walls before being killed. Izuku said, walking away but stopping to look back. I gave them 10 chances to change their mind about how I run my community, they couldn't stand it and stole my food and supplies and left. I gave them the chance to wait it out until morning to leave, they didn't listen, and they were dead when I looked for them in the morning. Please don't be like them. I don't like it when people needlessly die. Especially little kids, Izuku said, solemnly as he walked away. Aunt Mandalay, I don't want to be out of the walls. The little boy said, fearfully. As much as I don't like how he talked to you Kota, I need you to be on your best behavior. I don't want to lose all that I have left if my other friends are dead. Mandalay said, looking at Izuku's retreating figure as well as staring at the starboard-shaped scars on his back. Back in the city Hawks, Mirko and the mysterious young man were battling an undead threat that needed to be put down. The young man was sad about the fact that he knew this man as his old sensei before he fought the undead by himself and couldn't stand to see him like this. They had the old sensei on the ropes as he was nearly disintegrated when the supposed sensei of the young man had moved his face closer to the young man to bite him. The young man placed his hand inside his old master's mouth and disintegrated the inside, while also getting bitten in the process. But he didn't care, so long as he could die happily, he was fine. As the undead's body was turned into ashes they watched as the young man hold his stomach as the turning process began. I need you to kill me, I don't wish to become one of those things. The young man called out, spitting out blood at the same time. What is your name before you die? Hawks asked him. My name is Tamura Shigaraki, but my real name is Tenko Shimura. The grandson of Nana Shimura, now I can die with a good conscience. He said, as Hawks decapitated the young Tamura. To think that he got bitten in the end. I don't think we should stay out here, Mirko. Hawks said, looking at her. Yeah, I think I should head over to that base the kid told me about. She said, looking at Hawks. Race you there? Hawks asked, smirking. You're on, Mirko called out, jumping from building to building. Stop that, rabbit, Hawks called out, flying in the direction of Mirko. It took them a little longer than they thought, as it was already dusk out when they arrived at the wall outside the small community. So, this is the place. It looks run down, Mirko comments. Just don't do anything that might piss off the young man. He has lost a lot in the coming days, and he would rather not lose what's left of his humanity yet. Hawks said, staring at the rabbit woman. What the hell does that even mean? Exclamation mark quote. Mirko yelled at the young man. He had lost his mother in the start of the apocalypse, but didn't find out about her condition until recently. Then he had saved some young girls from the undead outside the walls that you came into, as they thought that he was a bastard and they decided to leave during the night, taking all of the food and supplies. He didn't find them alive or all together when he searched for them. Then he found out that there were more people still alive. I am not sure what his mental processing is at right now, but he is soon about to break mentally and will be a liability when that day happens. Hawks said, seriously, how do you know all of this? She asked, concerned. It was all from Hound Dog. Turns out he survived the ambush on him and Principal Nezu, and they both arrived here at the same time. But he has been recording Izuku's mental state and it isn't good. He has no self-worth, no confidence in himself as a person, and would rather die saving someone than watch after his own life. He was bullied for something he couldn't even control. His lack of a quirk. So, if you do something to get him angry enough to throw you out of this place, be prepared to leave, because he means it when he says that he will kick you out of the community himself. This is his home, and he will be damned if he lets this place fall. Hawks said. Mirko watched as he moved closer to the wall as he opened the door, as he stared at her with a small smile. Welcome Rumi Usajama, to Little Musudafu, home of Izuku Midoriya, Hawks said, cheekily getting the woman to laugh. On the outskirts of the Musudafu prefecture over the ocean we find a familiar prison being assaulted by the undead. The prison guards are fighting the undead with guns as well as swords and shields, as they are killing the undead as fast as they appear. We can't let this place fall. If it falls, all of the Japanese villains that were placed here will escape. One of the guards called out. All the way in the deepest depths of the prison we close in on one of the prisoners as she is sitting at a small table with some katsudon, eating it in peace. This place is getting more and more hectic every day, the woman said, revealing her purple eyes as she stared at one of her prison guards. Lady Nagant, your lunch is over. Place the tray over by the door so we may retrieve it. One of the guards called out. She slid her tray near the door as she waited for them to arrive to get it. But when the door opened, she noticed that this guard was already sluggish. Guard, one of your own is acting weird, the now named Lady Nagant called out. The guard noticed that one of their own was undead as he pulled down the barrier around Nagant's cell as he pulled out a gun and shot the undead guard in the head. Damn it, can't believe that it got this deep. Captain, we need your assistance here, the guard called out on his radio. All he got was radio silence. Captain, damn it, we lost power. Nagant, you either stay here or you can escape. I know that you didn't kill the official of the Hero Association willingly. They were always corrupted. I know that the world out there isn't what you think it is now, but you need to find a place where you can survive. I'm sure you can do it, the guard said, looking at the woman. We are given a view of her as she has purple and pink hair that are styled into a ponytail. She was wearing the traditional prisoner uniform of a consisting orange get-up as she looked at the guard with dead eyes. You're really allowing me to leave this prison? What is going on outside that is requiring you to have me leave? Nagant asked, suspicious. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't think defending this place was a lost cause. Now get out of here before I change my mind, the guard said, taking off her quirk-canceling cuffs and leads her out and into the prison. Don't you think that I would go kill other heroes? Nagant asked, as they made their way over to the exit of the prison. No, you only killed those heroes who were getting too corrupted. And to be honest, you did a good job. Not many people are true heroes anymore. I just hope you last long enough to find one yourself, the guard said, as he held his hip. Nagant noticed him leaning on his left side more as he was coughing in pain more often than not. She realized that his face was becoming more and more pale as she realized his true meaning of him telling her to leave. He was making sure that he doesn't kill her himself by eating her alive or something. She saw the newscast about undead people eating others and turning them into more of them. They made it to the exit of the prison as there was a boat sitting at the docks as the guard gave her the key to it. I am going to head back in and fight the remaining members of the prison guards. I need to make sure that I don't turn into one of those things as well. The guard said, walking back into the prison. Nagant then looked towards the city that had smoke as well as fires all around it as she started the boat and sped off towards the danger-filled city of Musudafu. A purple and pink-haired woman enters the edge of the city as she looks around for anything resembling some kind of society. She hears the distant gunshots of a family down the street followed by a lot of screaming. She gets a move on it as she starts climbing the nearest building as she runs from rooftop to rooftop, and all that she can see and hear is the death and destruction of the civilians down below. She even hears those who are fighting back against the dead and managing to push them back. They were led by a young man with red hair that was spiked up as he was searching for someone or something. Next to him was someone who she never thought she would see ever again. It was Hawks, and he was seemingly helping this red-haired individual as he was fighting the undead all by himself. As the woman was moving away, she heard other people looting the nearby corner stores as she saw a man wearing all black attire as well as having a capture gear on his shoulders, and she knew who he was immediately. What is Eraserhead doing here? I thought he was still at UA. Did it get overthrown? The woman asked, lowly. But as she got a closer look, she noticed that he was stealing food and supplies with Hawks. She didn't know what was going on, but they might need her help. As she took aim at one of the undead, she didn't know that they were dead. She gunned the person down in the shoulder. But what she wasn't prepared for was that Hawks moved over and slammed his feather blade down into the person's head. What the hell? I know I taught him to go for the kill when needed, but that is a bit excessive. The woman thought to herself. Unknown to her, one of the undead had noticed her location and moved to take her by surprise, and it was just pure luck that a young man with green hair was inside the building at the time to notice it coming up the stairs. Thinking nothing of it, he moved over and killed it without even knowing he saved the life of someone on top of his building. Why did he not think that someone was on the building with him, you may ask? Well, he is a little deaf since the beginning, as well as the explosions that his ex-best friend had used on him as well as Mei's explosions in the basement that happened when he was near. The woman then decided that she spent enough time there as she jumped away looking for some semblance to society and left the others to themselves. Izuku was not having a good day. He had to fight a horde of undead by himself since the others didn't want to risk getting bitten by the undead and have the undead use their quirks against him. Then he was hit with an explosion by Mei on accident, which pushed him into a panic attack that was stopped by Aizawa since he was the husband of present Mike of all people. Now that he was inside this situation, he was seriously thinking that God had it out for him this entire day. Because as of right now, he was standing in front of the mall that was surrounded by the undead from all sides, and he was all alone. Sure, he could easily get in and out without needing to risk his life since they don't go for him. But then what about the potential enemies inside the place since he couldn't be understood by those inside? Not to mention that those around him might experiment on him should they find out his immunity to the undead virus. But that is beside the point since right now he just saw someone jump over a large gap heading towards the mall as she didn't seem to notice the large crowd it was alluring. As soon as he climbed up to the rooftops, he found the woman had purple-colored hair with pink fringes everywhere. As he slowly moved closer, he noticed that he made the slightest sound that caused the woman to turn around and shoot him in his left shoulder. Gaha! Izuku screeched as he held his shoulder in pain. Oh shit, I'm so sorry, I thought you were one of the crazies out there. The woman called out, pulling out bandages. Don't worry. It was my fault, I shouldn't have been so quiet. Izuku stutters, from the blood leaving his shoulder. Still, I should have been more careful. I hate shooting kids. The woman said, saying the last part under her breath. As they patched Izuku up, he noticed how the woman was looking in the direction of the mall as if she was waiting for something to happen. Why are you looking at the mall? Izuku asked, curious. I was waiting for those bastards to move, but they just won't. It's like there is something there preventing them from moving forward. The woman said, well, they probably can't move because of the fact that someone might have used their quirk to stop them temporarily. Other than that, they might just think it's not worth it. Izuku said, looking at them very closely. How do you know that? The woman asked. I've watched these undead for a few months since the start of the outbreak. I learned their patterns as well as their likes and dislikes. In short, I am the best chance you got at getting into the mall and getting out. Izuku said, looking at the woman. How is that? The woman asked. I'm quirkless. They don't eat people like me, but that doesn't mean that they won't take a chunk out of me in the process. Izuku said, revealing an old bite wound on his chest. Aren't you infected then? She asked. Nope. I even bit someone else and they didn't turn, so I guess that I am just immune to this virus, fungus, or whatever this is. Izuku said, looking at the woman before asking. What is your name by the way? Kana Tsutsumi, otherwise known as Lady Nagant. The now named Nagant said. How are you out of prison? Izuku asked. I was let out because of me being a good person in there. What are you doing out here? Nagant asked, curious. I was going to see where the best point of entry of this place is since there might be people inside the mall already. But we might as well enter through the sewers. It's the best chance we got at entering the place from below. It might already be filled with undead. But it is worth a shot. Now the undead can smell you based on your quirk, so can you tell me if you have a quirk? Izuku asked. I call it rifle. It allows me to turn my arm into a rifle that I can shoot my hair as if they were bullets. Nagant said, as Izuku went into a mumble spree about it and how it could be used for heroics. Snapping himself out of his mumble spree, he looked over at the mall and looked back at Kana as she stared at him. Well, could you please use my shirt as a bandana? It will mask your scent to the undead and will make sure that you won't get bitten by them. Izuku said, staring into her purple eyes. As Kana moved the shirt out of Izuku's hand and onto her face, she noticed that he smelled like cinnamon rolls as she moved the shirt closer to her mouth subconsciously. As he looked at her, he saw that she was looking at him with a serious expression, and they moved out to find the manhole cover in order to travel by sewers. Over to the mall. Izuku and Kana, after taking a few turns as well as wrong turns into the undead hordes in the sewers, made it into the mall as they caught their breath. I thought you said that it would mask my scent, Kana scolded. It does. The sewer smell just covered it. I should have just told you to cover yourself in their guts in order to hide amongst them. Izuku muttered. Place their guts all over myself? Kana asked, bewildered. It works. Just don't expect it to work all the way when it rains. Izuku said, moving towards the food store nearby. As they walked closer to it, they heard the distinct sound of a gun being cocked as they hide behind some bleachers of a small corner mall store. Give us the money, dude, or suffer with the undead outside. One of the bandits called out. We don't have any money. We just live here, one old man called out, pleading. Sorry, old man, you are going out there with the undead. The man said, as Izuku pulled out his 9mm handgun as he fired at the man in his back, the recoil hitting said man on the lower chest but knocking him down. As he looked over towards the other bandit, Izuku threw a knife as it lodged itself into his throat as he fell to the ground dead. Izuku then stood above the other man that threatened death as Izuku placed another bullet into his brain. That's what you get for attacking the old and innocent. Izuku said, eerily angered. Thank you, young man. We are in your debt. The old man said, smiling. Don't worry about it. Is there any more food here? Izuku asked. Yes, over there by the kitchen. There is enough food for those of your people or yourself to last a total of 10 years if rationed right. The old man said. Why aren't you defending it? Izuku asked, curious. I am old, I will die soon anyway, might as well make sure that there is still food for the next generation. The man said, as his breathing quickened at the sight of the first set of doors being broken down by the undead. If we want to live another day, we need to hurry it up. Let's go, Izuku said, looking to Kana as well as the old man. Don't worry about little old me, I will hold them off while you get the food and get out. The old man said, pulling out an M16 assault rifle. I have about 100 rounds for this baby, and I will make sure to take as many with me as I can. The old man said, looking towards the door, shouldn't we help him? I mean, he looks too old to move a muscle, Kana asked, concerned. If he wants to die, let him. He isn't our problem right now. It is the undead. Do you want to become one of them or do you want to live? Izuku asked, seriously. As Kana looked at him, they moved into the kitchen as they collected as much food and water as they could in order to help one another. Do you have anywhere to stay? Izuku asked, looking over at her while collecting some food. Nope, I just got out of prison and already I wish I was still in there. Kana said, collecting some cinnamon rolls, ironically. We don't have to collect all of it, we just need enough to last us for a while, since I will make some room for you at my base. Izuku said, looking at Kana. Soon enough they collected as much as they could when they hear the sounds of the old man screaming as well as an M16 going off. Come and get some, you mealy-mouthed bastards. We need to leave now. Izuku said, looking at Kana. She nodded her head as she followed him to the area where they entered the building. But as they got near the sewers, they saw that it was covered in the undead, and that was when they noticed the old man's gun had stopped being heard. Damn, they got him. We need to kill one of them and walk out of here as fast as possible. Izuku said, gaining the attention of one of the undead. After bringing it to him, he kicks the leg of the undead out from underneath it and stabs it in the head. Kana kills the other undead in the room as Izuku guts the undead from the stomach as he starts to cover himself with their guts. Izuku then moved over to Kana as she was then given some undead blood and guts and placed them on herself. Izuku got her back while she got his when they heard the bang on their door. Looking at one another, they placed even more on themselves as they looked to one another, believing that they were all right. Just as they were about to continue towards the door, Izuku was grabbed by the foot and pulled into the undead horde at the sewers as he yelled. Go to Central Musutafu. The base is there. I will meet you at the Musutafu General Police Station. Izuku said, running off. Kana moved closer to the door as it was busted down as she had moved out of the way. The horde then followed the yelling into the sewers as Kana made it towards the main lobby of the place as she saw the remains of the old man and his weapon nearby as it was out of bullets. There was a very distinct bullet hole in his head as he was staring at the sky with milky white eyes. Kana made it to the General Musutafu police station, and she was looking around for Izuku when she noticed his form moving towards her with an obvious limp. Izuku, are you alright? Kana yelled. I'm fine, just one of those bastard dogs bit me. I won't turn if that's what you're thinking, Izuku said, looking at the woman's skeptical look. Come on, we got to look at the base right now. Hawks would be happy to see you. Izuku said, limping away. Hawks is with you? Kana asked, curious. Yup, he landed near me a month ago when he was blasted out of the sky from a man in a suit. But he completely recovered to the point of being capable of flight again, so I guess that's all right. Izuku said, looking at the wall that they came up to. This is my home, please don't diss it, it is where I grew up at. And I wouldn't call any other place home, Izuku said, as he opened the door revealing a destroyed neighborhood with a bunch of bodies all around. What the hell happened? Izuku yelled, scaring Kana a little bit. As he ran over to the bodies of everyone present at the road, he was beginning to tear up as he thought that they were really dead. This can't be happening to me again. Not again, Izuku said, descending into a panic attack. Just as it was about to get worse, everyone jumped up, scaring Kana into pulling her gun out as they all said surprise. Slam! Izuku had passed out from too much worry as well as pain of his mental state. Darn, I thought that we should surprise him for his birthday today. I didn't think our surprise would cause him to pass out. Mei said, completely confused. You don't just act dead to the guy and expect him to know that it was a surprise. He thought we were dead. He nearly descended into a panic attack before being surprised so much to the point the emotions just knocked him out. Hound dog called out, smacking the girl on the head. What the hell is going on? Kana asked. As Ochako came outside to see an unconscious Izuku on the ground with foam coming out of his mouth. A Mei with a bump on her head with hound dog scolding her, while a woman was poking Izuku's head with her finger, concerned for the boy. What the hell is going on? The woman asked. Surprise party. It's Izuku's birthday, Ochako called out with a cake. As Kana lays Izuku down on his bed, she heads back out of the room to find the others inside the main living room as she sits down on the couch. So you mean to tell me that you made a surprise for Izuku and thought that he would be okay with that? On his birthday? Kana asked, curious. Yes, we didn't think that he would take it the way he did. Ochako said, glumly. Well, we didn't think that it would make him faint. Is he going to be okay? Arie called out, as she was sad that her new dad passed out. Don't worry about him, little one, he is a tough cookie. I bet he will survive. Kana said. As they were talking, Aizawa came up to her in order to understand which side of the place she was staying at she was on. So Izuku saves you from the undead, and you are here now. What do you want from him? Aizawa asked, curious. I want nothing more than to help him and you all survive out here. I know that the place out there is no better than here. But this is all I have in order to survive the undead-riddled world, then so be it. Kana said, leaning back on the couch. The night continued on as Kana was sleeping on the couch and Ochako was holding on to Arie as they were waiting for Izuku to wake up for his birthday. But soon enough Izuku woke up from his slumber and walked out into the living room as he saw everyone sleeping around the couch, and Kana was sleeping now with Arie on her chest, using her breasts as a pillow for herself. Izuku smiled at her innocence as he covered Kana with a blanket as he was covering Arie and Kana. Ochako had woken up and saw his act of kindness as she moved around to signal to Izuku that she was awake. As Izuku turned around he found Ochako standing up now as she stared at him with eyes that made him secretly wish to have them all to himself. She then has a finger motioning him to follow her into his room once more as he follows dumbly. Like seriously, does she think that she has him wrapped around her fingers? But he simply follows her as he closes his bedroom door, and she starts to look at him with sadness. Are you okay? I didn't know if you passed out from being hurt or from being too surprised. Ochako said, looking away. I'm fine, it was just something I never experienced before. I just hope that you don't even do this again, Izuku said, looking away bashfully. Ochako then moved closer to Izuku as he stared at her dumbly as she leaned near his face with hearts for eyes now. Well, I know something that you might like. Ochako paused as she stared at Izuku filled with lust. Are we about to do something? Izuku asked, innocently. We are going to be doing it until you get me pregnant, Ochako said, licking her lips. I need an adult, Izuku said, as both teens heard Midnight call out from the living room. I am an adult. Is she sleeping still? Izuku asked, before getting grabbed by a hand from his doorway. Izuku woke up the next morning, and the thing he didn't think would happen when he woke up was that he couldn't move much from his bed, nor could he not notice that Kana as well as Ochako was in his bed, and he didn't do anything to get them out. So he got out of bed and found that it was late in the afternoon as he entered the living room in what the hell happened the previous night. As he entered the kitchen, he found Aizawa and Cementos in the room as All Might was sipping some tea with Nezu and Hound Dog sitting in a chair in the living room as he sips some hot chocolate. Morning, my boy. How did you sleep last night? All Might asked, curious. I can't walk very well. I don't think I will do anything today, since I can't move my legs that much at all, Izuku said, sitting next to Nezu. Well, at least we can play some chess, Nezu said, laughing. Meanwhile with Kana, she woke up as she feels so much pain in her legs as she looks to her right and finds Arie staring at her with concern. Are you okay? Arie asked, concerned. I'm fine, just legs are sore. What are you doing awake right now? Kana asked, curious. I wanted to wake you up. Izu wanted me to get you prepared for breakfast. Same with Mama Ochako. Arie calls out, happily. Blushing profusely, Kana picked up Arie and walked out of the room as she laughed at some jokes Arie made about Izuku fumbling around in the first week of learning how to deal with her. All Might had woken up today as he was preparing for his day in terms of protecting the base of operations. He had been on the sidelines in order to rest his power to the point he could use it at full power without having a small amount of time to use it. He had been eating some breakfast when Izuku ran into the room with a laughing Uraraka as he was happily twirling the young girl around the room. Young Midoriya, what has you all happy today? The old hero asked, curious. Uraraka's pregnant. I can't believe that I will be a father soon, Izuku said, laughing with tears in his eyes. I see that he is happy for a reason. But at the same time, I can't help but be a little jealous about his fatherhood as well as worried about it at the same time. He is in the undead apocalypse, and he is already becoming a father. All Might think to himself. It's so sudden too, because I was puking my guts out this morning. I took a pregnancy test today and found out that I was pregnant. I hope that I can become a great mother to our child, Uraraka said, smiling sadly at her stomach as she rubbed it. They all had a little party that Arie had invited herself into as Kana had entered the room with the little girl on top of her shoulders as she was laughing about being a big sister. Remember, kid, that you need to be capable of protecting the child as well as being able to feed it constantly. Kana and Eraserhead said, at the same time no less. As both looked at one another with a weird look, both shrugged their shoulders as they walked away as the small couple continued their little happy dance. It was here that Mirko and Hawks had entered the room with concerned looks on their faces. Mirko had bedhead as Hawks looked like he had died inside, and it was hilarious how he watched as Izuku was dancing around like he was a precious little rabbit. Even Mirko was happily watching from her seat at the table, and as she sat down at the table she announced to him about her and Hawks' relationship. Me and Hawks are just fuck buddies for right now. I just needed some fucking in order to get some stress off my back. The woman said, staring at All Might with a knowing look. I didn't even ask, All Might asked, confused. You gave us a concerning look, and I gave you an answer. Now I need to watch my daily dose of broccoli and chocolate dance like no tomorrow. The woman said, as she smiled watching the young couple dancing around like they don't care about the state of the world at the moment. But as the dance was about to get even better, a voice called out from the end of the hall. You better give me a bun in the oven, Izu. A feminine voice called out. Huh? Izuku asked, confused. He looked down the hall as he watched a sleep-deprived Mei walk out of her room with soot all over her body as she walked up to him with a smile on her face. You better put a bun in my oven as well. I am waiting until Uraraka's child is born in order to do that though. If you do it beforehand though, I may need some more compensation. The young woman said, smirking. More tools, got it? Izuku said, smirking at the woman as she smiled back at him, hugging him in the process. All Might had been on patrol in the small portion of Musutafu as he was looking for anything out of place in the area. He had been doing this every morning and night in order to keep the place safe, as you never know when someone with an Earth-like quirk may show up and destroy their home. But as he was walking around, he heard a groan of pain as well as suffering. He walked over and found a young man with purple eyes, as well as hair, as he was sitting on the ground with bite marks all over his body. He looked up at the symbol of peace for but a moment before looking away as he spoke. Please, just kill me. I got ambushed by the undead in this area. I don't have much time left in order to live. It's only a matter of time before whatever is in my bloodstream is completely taking control of my body. I just wish that I was born with a quirk that was actually not villainous. The purple-haired boy said, sadly. All Might pulled out a knife as he walked next to the downed boy. As he looked into the eyes of said boy, he saw a deep-seated hatred for everything. Any last words for this life, young man? All Might asked. I only wish that I could have seen my father's face as he was swarmed by the undead. It would have felt great to see that bastard die in front of me. The boy said, slowly closing his eyes. What's your name, young man, before I end it? All Might asked. It's Shinso. Hitoshi Shinso. And I dreamed of becoming an underground hero like Eraserhead. The boy said, with a bloody smile. I wish you a good life in the next world. Young Shinso. All Might said, pushing the blade into the young boy's head and killing him instantly. I still can't believe that I have to kill them like this. It is uncomfortable to do this. I really don't like killing those who are still alive, but it is a sacrifice I am willing to make. The man said, before walking away. If he stayed for a moment longer, he would have seen the body of the young boy twitch and foam from the mouth before it died for good. All Might entered the road that was a few hundred meters away from the base as he had to take a leak. He didn't like being all alone out here since the undead could be anywhere around the area. But at the same time, he was glad it was him out here and not Eraserhead. He was the more useful fighter amongst them, and he couldn't allow for that man to be killed and turned on the surviving members of humanity in Musutafu. There is still some time before the horde comes by tomorrow. But at the same time, I am getting a bad feeling about this night. As if I am being watched from afar and I don't like it, my gut never lies. All Might said to himself mostly. He looked around his area as he left his leak spot on his patrols and found a few undead just around the corner. But what caught him off guard was the fact that they were mutated in appearance. They weren't mutation quirk users. The virus or disease they suffered from had increased their muscle mass as well as increased their power in their aura. He had seen it in most villains that had a last-second power-up as they wanted to win a fight, and it didn't mean anything to him then, but now, it was as if they were prepping for a big meal that would fight back. As if they were, raw. One of the undead called out, coming for him. How did it sense me? I had young Midoriya's scent all over myself. All Might yelled in his mind, scared. Izuku was having a great day. He had been running around Musutafu as he collected enough baby formula as he made sure that Ochako could breastfeed the child once it was born, but he couldn't be more prepared as he got the formula. He was having a great day since he was a soon-to-be father, and it was a great feeling as he wanted to raise a child of his own like his own mother raised himself. His father hadn't been there since he abandoned them when he was declared quirkless, and he didn't like how his mother hid that fact. So he found out that his father was the infamous villain All for One from the myths that stated that he would come out and kidnap you from your family if you were quirkless and force you to become one of his own pawns. He had met the villain once before since the man was on his deathbed. He thought that he could ask him about his life. He surely wished he hadn't, since the man had been covered in missing flesh as well as bite marks all over his body when he asked. The man stated his life was full of power as well as battles, and that he killed heroes since he wanted to be the demon king of the comic books he read as a child. Unfortunately, this was before he knew that damaging or destroying the brain in an undead monster could kill them for good. It was how he got his bite mark from the villain Gone Rabbit and had pinned him to the ground as he was trying to fight it off. As it bit into his flesh, he screamed in pain as the monster of a man was now a rabid animal that only wanted flesh. But that was in the past. He rounded the corner only to find some undead chasing All Might down the street, but what made this worse was that they were forcing him to head into a hive nest of undead. He called All Might in order to stop him from going that direction, but it turned out that his phone was literally dead, and he made his way over there to try and save the man. But when he got there, he surely wished he hadn't. All Might was now not having a good afternoon, but there was something wrong with this area. There was too many undead in the area, like the ones chasing him around the place. As he turned around to fight them, he transformed into his All Might form as he pounded the monsters into death as he destroyed their brain matter within seconds. But that also left him wide open for another horde to come up behind him and have one of them bite him in the left calf muscle in his leg. As he grunted and pulled away from the horde, he moved back as he prepared for the fight of his life. Punches and kicks went wild for him as time passed for him. He didn't know how much time had passed, but the amount of undead in this area was absurd. He was also feeling the effects of the bite mark in his left leg, but there was something wrong about it. He needed to take his leg off in order to survive the bite. He still had time in order to live here, but he needed to escape with his life first. As the fight continued, he was left with a bloody body as one of the monsters was as strong as one of the monsters from his past All for One. The man was in his suit and tie, acting like nothing happened to him in the last fight that happened to him. How are you still alive in this mess? All for One? ? All Might called out, punching the villain that was looking like the already dead undead villain. Izuku managed to turn the corner as he watched as All Might was slowly becoming overpowered by the undead. He was launched to Izuku's location when Izuku jumped back as All Might landed on the ground. All Might, are you alright? You need to get out of here, Izuku said, pulling the man up. Young Midoriya, of course, just leave it to me. I can't leave this area since I was already bitten. But I need you to take a piece of my hair, and make sure that you take it at some point. All Might said, coughing up blood, more than he ever did before. What happened? Izuku asked, helping the old man to his feet. I was bitten by one of the undead that I killed before you arrived. But have I ever told you the meaning of being a hero? All Might asked. To be a hero you need to meddle when those around you don't want you to meddle. Izuku said, well, I need you to understand that yes, we heroes have a lot to protect, young Midoriya. Hey, Dakara Makanandio, All Might said, as his eyes glowed blue and his arm buffed up. Run, young Midoriya, and live to tell the next generation how the symbol of peace saved your life. All Might called out, as Izuku ran off, watching as the man fought to his last breath before getting swarmed from all angles. Graphic warning, be prepared. As Izuku disappeared from view, All Might was seen all alone on the field as he was being torn to pieces, but he was thinking of something else, as he pulled out a grenade from his pocket. Sugiwa, Kimada, All Might thought to himself as he points in Izuku's direction. And as the disappearing form of Izuku leaves the hero's sightline, he saw a vision of Nana in front of his eyes. I found the next user of One for All, Nana. I hope he is a hero like us. Blaru. All Might cried out in pain as his upper torso was torn off his lower body. As soon as Izuku's form was completely away from his sight, All Might's eyes were slowly losing the light in them as he slowly was dying. But just as it was about to go out, his eyes glowed with a passion that he couldn't allow to have these undead continue, and he pulled the pin as well as powered up to the maximum he could that would cause an explosion in the area. Time to take you all with me. You think you killed me? No, it was IWHO killed you. Fear not, citizens, for I am here. All Might yelled with power as an explosion covered the area. Graphic warning over. Izuku entered the base all alone as he had his eyes tearing up from the sight he had witnessed. All Might, the symbol of peace, had been swarmed by the undead. But the worst part, he was all alone in his death. He had heard the giant explosion of power in the area behind himself and ran back only to find all the undead that was feasting on All Might's body had been blown apart as All Might's body was in two pieces as he was crawling on the ground looking for food. His blue eyes had faded into a light sky blue as he looked at Izuku in a haze. Izuku had taken that moment to kill him all the way as he took both pieces and dragged them back to their base and buried him in the backyard right next to his mother's grave. I'm sorry that I couldn't save you, All Might, Izuku said, sadly. He watched as the sun sets over the horizon of the city as Mentos had covered the place with his cement. Izuku went to bed that night with nightmares plaguing him about how he couldn't save All Might from his fate as said man stared at him stating the words in his head over and over. Now it's your turn. Izuku walked into the apartment with a very broken look on his face. He had just witnessed the number one hero as an undead walker amongst the dead outside the place and killed his corpse in order to prevent him from ever coming back. Izuku was in his bedroom as he was thinking about the day he has had. It went from having a great morning of becoming a father, to Mei wanting him to put a bun in her oven as well. Then now him witnessing All Might dying to the undead as well, it was just about to break him mentally. And he didn't want to be around anyone. He regretted not coming to All Might's rescue sooner cause if he did maybe the man could still be alive now. As Izuku was in his little closet mourning his favorite hero's death, his bedroom door opened to a girl entering the room with a sad smile on her face. She moved closer to his closet as she found him curled up in a ball as he cried silently about the situation that he had no control over. It was here that she knew was Izuku's true self. He was a real kind, caring as well as emotional character that was really bad with people dying. But seeing him like this now, it really showed how much emotions he was bottling up without him even realizing it. He was bullied, beaten, mentally and physically exhausted, as well as now leading a small group of survivors that were trying to make it for life as he was mourning the death of his favorite hero. The girl sat down next to Izuku as he cried silently. She pulled his head to sit on her lap as she moved her fingers through his hair as she was softly humming to him. It was a lullaby song that she learned from Izuku, helped him whenever he was a little kid, and his mother hummed it whenever he was distraught. As she was humming it, she noticed the dark circles under his eyes as she noticed he wasn't even sleeping at night. As she watched as he was slowly falling asleep, she placed him near her chest as she hugged him tightly. She knew that he was hurting and that he needed to have someone to help him recover the best that he can in order to continue with life. For Izuku, All Might was an untouchable man that was seemingly invincible as he just watched the man die in front of him. And now she has to watch him to regret his life choices as she knows that he will blame himself. She continued to hum the lullaby as she waited for him to be having calm breaths as he started to breathe evenly. When she stopped and just moved her fingers through his hair, she placed him on his bed as she was about to leave, when she heard him speak in his sleep. Mom. Please don't go. I don't want to be alone anymore. Izuku mumbled as tears came out of his eyes. This continued until Ochako was now in his bed as she was revealed in the moonlight as she was looking at Izuku sadly, as she laid down next to him as she snuggled up to his body with him hugging her close to his body as well. Aizawa showed a paw. I woke up to the sound of some undead banging on the walls outside of our base of operations. While the child Mei was inside the toolshed in terms of making something to combat the undead, I was sent out to find more survivors in order to get them here safe and sound. No matter their side to heroism or villainy. Anyone and everyone will be saved, no matter the cost. It was something that made that boy more unique except for the fact that the one person who would do that is now dead. I can't believe that he had gotten caught off guard with the fact he couldn't kill just one of those things without his stupid quirk. But because of his death, the child who was there to see him die, is now completely muted himself as well as locked himself away in his room. The only one capable of going in there is his daughter, as well as his girlfriend. Not even Nagant is allowed in there at the moment, which surprised me since he had sex with them not even 2 weeks ago. But that is besides the point. As he was walking around the perimeter of the base as he overhears some movement behind some buildings in the area of the base. Moving towards that spot, we find Hawks and Mirko standing over a small pond as they look at the fish swimming about the pond as they begin to speak. I know that his death is quite harsh for our survival, but he really needs to get over it. It happened, now get out of your room and just be yourself again. Seriously, how hard is that? Mirko rants to Hawks. I don't know what is going through his mind right now, but he is probably blaming himself for the death of All Might. Hawks said, causing the girl to look at him. How does he blame himself? Question mark. He wasn't there until the last minute of when he overheard the man telling him he was bitten. There is no way in hell that it is his fault, Mirko said, angrily. It's the human mind, Mirko. He blames himself for not doing something to help the man. All Might was the strongest hero in the world, and to have him die to the undead. It fucked his mind as well as his thoughts on his stature as the strongest being on the earth. Hawks informed. Well, at least someone is helping the boy. I don't think that I would like to see him like this again. How far into the pregnancy is that Uraraka girl? Mirko asked, curious. She is at least 4 months in for her pregnancy. I think that the way the world is right now, is forcing the fetus inside her to gestate at a much faster rate in order to survive. Hawks said, looking at Mirko. Well, we need him to get out of that room in order to spread his genes to Nagant. She will be a great mother, I know it, Mirko said, smirking. The duo would then walk away into another building as Aizawa watched from afar as they got into the freaky side of animal quirks. I'm not getting paid enough for this, Aizawa said, walking away from them as he continued his patrol. After it was noon, Aizawa returned to the apartment as he was preparing to get some lunch for himself. He entered the building as he found Ochako sitting on the couch with Arie sitting next to her as Ochako was holding her stomach. Are you all right, Uraraka? Aizawa asked, concerned. I'm fine, just wished Izuku was here to help, Ochako said, grimacing as she stared at her stomach. Just as they were about to continue their conversation, Izuku came out of his room, but there was something wrong with his eyes. The left one was the same as his emerald eyes, but his right eye was blood red in color in the pupil. Aizawa got his hand on his capture weapon as he looks at Ochako as she moved closer to Izuku. Izuku. Are you all right? Ochako asked, concerned. I don't know what to do anymore. I should have listened to him. Yeah, that's what I should do now, Izuku said, walking out of the apartment. Ochako seeing Izuku like this immediately became alarmed, as did Aizawa. Aizawa-sensei, you need to stop him. He's going to kill himself, Ochako said, trying to get off the couch only to feel a contraction in her stomach as she groaned in pain. Don't worry, Ochako, I will keep him from offing himself, Aizawa said, running off to find Izuku. Aizawa was running around the base as he was in search of Izuku. He couldn't find him for the life of himself. It was as if the boy had simply disappeared. But then he saw Izuku looking at the pond of koi and made his way over to the kid. Not realizing that Izuku had a weapon on himself, he closed the distance before Izuku whipped around enough to give himself whiplash. I know you're following me. I don't need you to save me. I'm already broken and useless. Don't you want to leave me alone for the quirkless fuck I am? Quote. Izuku screamed as he stared the hero in the eyes. This isn't the way, Midoriya. Dying will not solve anything. Aizawa scolded. Well, tough luck. You should have told me that years ago, Aizawa-san. I've already tried so many times before this shit happened. I have been abused, mentally broken to the point of which I don't even think living is the right choice. Quote. Izuku screamed, garnering the attention of those around himself. Aizawa really needed Izuku to calm down since he was going to attract the attention of the undead as he was screaming his daylights out. Midoriya, you need to quiet down. Do you want your unborn child and Arie to die because of your brash actions leading the undead upon us? Quote. Aizawa sternly yells, I don't care at the moment. I lost my mom to this plague. I lost my father to a villain attack before I was even born. I caused the death of All Might. I am just so completely useless that I just make other people die around me. What does this world want from me? Izuku cries out, falling to his knees. Just calm down, and think about those you met during this plague. You met All Might, me, Nezu and many others during this apocalypse. You actually befriended Hero's kid. You need to calm down and return to the apartment and rest. You really look like you need it, Aizawa said, as he looked around their area. He then watched as Izuku lifted the knife he had in his hand as he placed it on his wrist and cut his skin. Aizawa then took that as his chance to stop whatever was going through Izuku's mind as he took the knife away from the kid as well as enveloping the boy in a hug as he beat the man's chest as he began to tear up. I can't do this anymore. I'm just like dad. Izuku mumbles as he was sobbing. Kid, you're not expected to handle things better than adults. Nothing could ever prepare you for this kind of event to happen. Nobody is at fault for dying except those involved in the incident. Aizawa said, grumbling. What do you mean? Izuku asked, still crying. Whatever happened to All Might was his own fault for letting his guard down. You never do that in this kind of world. You want to know why? Aizawa asked. Because it will cost you your life? Izuku questioned. You're absolutely right. It was All Might's decision to lower his guard for a moment that costed him his life. You were just at the right place at the wrong time, Aizawa said, causing Izuku to lower his head. I could have done something to make sure he survived. I could have taken off his leg. Izuku said, looking towards the koi pond. Nothing you could have done would have saved All Might, kid. He was dead the moment he got bitten. The moment you arrived would have only sealed your fate with All Might's, Aizawa said, sitting next to Izuku. With Ochako, she was sitting on the couch as she was recovering from her pain of having her stomach punch her from the inside out. She had been worried about Izuku and Aizawa since they both left the place since Izuku and him had been gone for quite some time. She was about to get up when the door opened up and revealed Aizawa and Izuku walking through the place as he sat down at the table with Izuku sitting next to her. I'm sorry for what I was about to do. I don't know what came over me. Izuku said, his eye back to normal. I think you need to see Nezu about your eye thing, but you don't need to apologize for that. Just make sure that you never think about killing yourself, okay? That will only make the person who told you to do that win. Ochako said, kissing the boy on his cheek as he blushed at the affection. The duo walked towards his room as Mei had walked into the kitchen to find Aizawa sleeping at the table as she smirked at him. She took some of his coffee and duplicated it for herself as well as taking some burritos in order to get herself some dinner. Make sure you get some sleep tonight, Hatsume. Aizawa grumbles, changing his position under the table. Will do. Aizawa, sir. Mei called out, heading for the storage shed. Damn kids. Aizawa mumbles before going back to sleep. Izuku had exited his room as he finished his job with Mei. She had been adamant about him giving her some blood about making some baby, but he put it off for a while. As he walked out of his room, he came face to face with Nezu as he was smiling at the boy with a grin that made him shudder. Good morning, young Midoriya. I have been wishing to have some fun with you. I hope you are a fan of chess, Nezu said, happily as Izuku looked at him with a fond look in his eyes. I am a fan of chess. I just hope that I am not too rusty from the last time I played the game. Izuku said, as they went to sit at the table in the kitchen. As Nezu was setting the game up, Izuku made some breakfast for the two of them so that they could have something to eat while eating. As they were eating their breakfast, Izuku had been moving his pieces with Nezu coming in to counter his attack formation. It was a really fun match from how they were focusing so much on attack and defense. So Izuku, what was the first day like for you when you entered the zombie apocalypse? Nezu asked, moving a knight. It was like a normal day, but it was always going to end badly. Izuku said, moving his bishop. Well, I guess you can put it like that. But I wanted to know about the mind you had during the first days of the apocalypse. Nezu said, "It was like normal days for me. I was on my way to school, and when I wasn't able to make it I immediately went home in order to see what was going on across the country. I never thought that the people would be eating one another just to quench their thirst for flesh and blood." Izuku said, moving his pawn towards the rat's position of king. Moving his next piece of the game, Nezu then questioned Izuku's mindset in terms of the game of chess. "What are your thoughts about the game of chess? Does it make you wind down as it calms you, or does it make you enraged?" Nezu asked, curious. "It has calmed me down in the past, since I never had an opponent as tough as you. But I will say this, Nezu, I will find a way to defeat you." "Check," Izuku said, putting the king in check with his bishop moving closer to the king. "I see, you are trying to get me to move in the way of your knight. Well, I guess I can move it in your direction," Nezu said, moving his king towards Izuku's rook in a diagonal position. A tough position for my rook, I can sacrifice him later though," Izuku said, moving his rook towards the edge of the board. "How was your life before the apocalypse?" Nezu suddenly asked, curiously. "I wasn't much to look at. I am a plain individual based on what others viewed me as. In terms of looks for that matter. But all in all, I was bullied for my being quirkless and not training to become a hero in the traditional sense of the term. I never really got over it, as I still think about whether or not I survived this long based on luck or not, is for you to decide. But sometimes I really think that I could have lived a better life based on the choices I made and if I had gotten a quirk," Izuku said, looking out the window as he placed his piece in the correct spot to place himself in check. Izuku would be seen moving some of the garden plants around so that he could grow some free food that wouldn't need to be scavenged. He was cleaning the yard when he noticed that Ochako was walking over to him as his eyes glowed in happiness. She sat down next to him with her big belly that was showing how pregnant she was at the moment. To think that he was going to become a father at the age of 15 years old, and he couldn't understand why his father was never there, nor did he even try to help him and his mother. So he was going to become an even better father than his own, and he couldn't understand why he couldn't know why his father never really cared for their safety, nor could he send them money to survive. Izuku was interrupted by Ochako talking to him. "Hey Izuku, do you know how scary it would be to have a baby in your stomach?" Ochako asked. "I wouldn't know since I'm not a girl," Izuku said, laughing a little. "Well, if Mei becomes smart enough to make a machine that would allow it to happen, would you become the opposite gender in order to see what it's like?" Ochako asked, curious. "If it is as bad as my mother told me, then I wouldn't wish to have it. But for you I will do it," Izuku said. "Well, I look forward to getting you to experience this part of motherhood. Although it would be interesting to see how we tell the kids about how you got pregnant when you were originally male." Ochako laughed. "I know, but we will make sure that you will be safe when giving birth." "You're what, 6 months pregnant now?" Izuku asked, curious. "Yep. I was surprised that my belly got this big. Will it get bigger if we wait a few more months?" Ochako asked. "Yes, from what I know your stomach will grow to the size of a basketball when you are nearing the labor start of your pregnancy," Izuku said, rubbing Ochako's belly. It was here that Mei entered the yard getting some grass under her feet in order to see what the conversation is about. "So what is this talk about?" Mei asked, cheerfully. "Just talking to Izuku about what he would think about if he was pregnant. Just to see how he would do things should you make a device that allows us to reverse the genders of the other," Ochako said, smiling. Izuku looked at Ochako with a small smile as he watched as Mei's eyes gained a glint in them as she was smiling happily at the thought of a new baby. "Well, it's just a thought. I didn't think that it would be entirely possible to change the genders without surgery," Izuku said, looking away bashfully. Mei then took the challenge to heart, even though he didn't challenge her to make such a device. "Well, since you gave me the idea of making such a thing, why don't we do this and create this baby? I can't wait to see all that it can do. You could essentially make the baby do other things such as take away the genitals of the opposing sex as well as replace them with what the party involved in taking away their genitals away their choice," Mei said, smiling happily. "I know that you will get happy with this baby, Mei, so break a leg in deciding to make such a thing. You'd need expensive materials to even come close to get what Ochako's wanting," Izuku said, getting from the ground and walking away. How long do you think it will take to make it? Ochako asked, curious. It should take about a few days to make without any sleep, but other than that I would need the materials to make such a machine. Not to mention that you'd be changing two genders in order to make a baby that came out of the human body. Mei said, bluntly. Ochako nodded her head as she left the area to Mei as she thought of the materials needed to make the machine as she walked back towards the workshop that Izuku made for her. Returning to the kitchen, Izuku finds Nezu sitting there with his chest set battling Eraserhead for dominance as Izuku chuckles at Eraserhead's impending loss. Sitting down at the table, Izuku watches the game continue as he sips some tea that Nezu had brewed while he was gone. Want to go against me again, young Midoriya? Nezu asked, looking at Izuku. Sure thing. I was going to ask you again if you wanted to play, but you were playing with Eraserhead so I was waiting. Izuku said, as Nezu placed Eraserhead in checkmate. Damn, I thought that I was getting better, Eraserhead said, grumbling as he walked away. You almost had me in check once, Nezu said, cheerfully. What about the problem child? Eraserhead asked, curious. He has placed me in check at least 3 times. The rat, bear, mouse, dog creature said, smirking. So his IQ is as big as yours, perfect. At least the world is in a state of apocalypse and he doesn't want to take over the world. Eraserhead said, as Izuku stared at him in disbelief. I should let you know that if I became a villain eraser, I would have been one of the most dangerous ones out there. Izuku said, staring the man down in the eyes. How so? He asked, a little annoyed. I know a lot about heroes, and not only that I took notes on them. Like how to improve their ability to use their quirk, their weaknesses, their strengths, as well as those that they hold dear. I was a super mega fan and I wouldn't let any bit of info go to waste. Unless it was a quirk, I wouldn't look away from them. Izuku said, smirking. Nezu smirked with Izuku. He was right, by the way. He could become a very dangerous villain should he put the mind he has to the test. But since he didn't, it showed his complete faith, lack of willpower to go through with it, considering his love for All Might. But since he was an All Might fan, he wasn't able to be taken advantage of by any villains out there who wanted him to work for them. Placing the pieces on the chessboard, Izuku and Nezu got back to the game that they started and Eraserhead decided to watch them play, and he was glad he did. Izuku made so many decisions that placed himself in a disadvantageous position that it wasn't funny, but the turnout for it was great. He was actually pushing back the principal with his young mind. Soon enough though, he did lose like most people who go against the heroic mind that belongs to Nezu. But out of all the heroes and villains that had taken him on in the infamous battle of chess, Izuku was the closest thing to winning against the creature, and he was seemingly not even trying. Don't forget to remind me to never get on your bad side, Eraserhead said, walking away from the table. Sure thing, Eraser. I hope that you have a good nap. Hawks and Mirko should be watching the walls tonight, Nezu said, as Izuku looked at the creature with fear. Sir, I think that would be a bad idea, Izuku said, as the creature looked at him confused. Shouldn't we have someone keep watch over the place while we sleep? Nezu asked. No, they will just come here because of the free food that we are being here would provide. Without them knowing about our presence here, we will be safe. Sure, they will notice a wall, but they won't look twice at the location of the wall thinking that it doesn't lead to anywhere food related, Izuku said, getting up from the table to make dinner. As he began to cook, Mei and Ochako entered the room as they smelled Izuku's infamous katsudon, and Arie and Nagant had entered the room as well. Well, something happened to make you make your favorite food, Nagant said, as she smelled the air. Yup, we are celebrating the fact that I nearly beat Nezu in a match of chess, Izuku said, smiling. He was about to finish the katsudon when they all heard a sound they thought they couldn't ever hear again. An explosion. Running out the house, they find out that there was an undead heading to their place with his hands exploding with force to launch himself towards Izuku's location. As they were preparing to attack the undead, Izuku noticed how it looked really familiar as he could only utter a single word. KK Kachan? Izuku asked, as the undead had landed in front of them, scowling. I'm going to make good on a promise I made you as a kid, Deku, Kachan said, smiling evilly. Katsuki Bakugo was a young man standing at 5'9" and had ash blonde hair as well as ruby red eyes to bat. He had an explosive quirk that matched his explosive ego the size of Vegeta's losing streak, and he wouldn't ever forget the moment that he was left behind by that worthless Deku. Izuku Midoriya was his old friend from childhood that never gained a quirk so their dream could be attained, and they'd be partners in crime in terms of heroism. But then, it all went crashing down when the boy started to look down on him when he tried to get him up from the river below a log in the forest. He remembers the moment from the day he was born, and he will never forget that worthless Deku looking down on him as if he was some kind of god. So he beat the little bastard every single day in order to show him his place, and since then they were no longer friends. He had always been annoyed by Deku's countless mumblings about heroes and had tried many times over the years in order to make sure the worthless bastard couldn't become one. But the little fuck just wouldn't give up, so he came up with a new idea: get everyone from every single school they went to, and told them everything about him looking down on others as well as him being quirkless and having the dream to become a hero. And they took to it like a hot knife cutting through butter. The boy would come to school every day and everyone would bully him relentlessly. Hell, even the teachers joined in on it as they saw it as a fun thing to do, and even though I felt something break in my heart to see the teachers say that it was something good to do. I went along with it as I broke Deku down all the way to junior high. This is where everything gets interesting. So this little bastard doesn't even train his body and he thinks he can become a hero. What a joke. Everyone knows that you need to train your body and quirk to become a hero. But he was only training his mind in order to become a hero, but the weird thing was that the teachers would call him out for cheating whenever he took a test and got better than me. Now don't get me wrong, as much as I would hate to be second fiddle to a quirkless reject at academics, but the little bastard is actually smart as fuck and he wouldn't cheat on anything. So imagine my surprise when he doesn't even fight back and just huddles into himself as he tries to disappear. Is that right? Was he really cheating? No way he was cheating. He never has the capacity to lie. Not only that, but he does everything by the book. It wasn't even funny, and I have seen him do his homework and every answer I got he did the same but in a different way. So when he just allowed it to happen, I was furious, but that was also my first and last mistake of my life. As we were leaving the school, over the last period of time we had been getting news of attacks on people in Musudafu as people were dead and attacking others like it was the freaking movies. So when me and Deku were on our way home together, for me to beat him into the dirt before leaving him, we get jumped by a bunch of undead freaks who try to bite us. Me being the hero that I was, fought them all on my own with Deku giving me tips as well during the fight. Never again will I do such a thing as it distracted me enough to be taken down by a big one. As soon as I was on the ground, the bastard has the gall to just leave me there on my own. The ball's on him. When I get him on his own, he will rue the day he messed with me. Gaining an unknown amount of power in my quirk, I blast the fucker off my body as I look around. But looking down at my arm, I feel it pulsating as if it was hurt, and imagine my surprise when I was bitten by the bastard before he was blasted away. So thinking on my head, I blasted my arm off and replaced it with a mechanical one in order to utilize my quirk more efficiently. And during my time in the world of the dead, I hear an explosion near my base of operations. Heading out, I find All Might of all people and Deku looking at the battle in awe and alarm as the #1 hero himself was taken down by a bunch of undead bastards. Sending Deku off in a rush, the #1 hero himself released a huge-ass explosion that killed himself as well as all the other dead in the area. But to my surprise, the little fucker came back and found All Might as one of the dead, but what was more shocking was the fact that he killed him on his own. When the fuck could he kill like that? So I follow this bastard as he goes back to his base of operations, and he has some heroes in his house like it's no big deal. So I watched them for a day or two in order to see how many people they have. And I like my odds, with how none of them being capable of fighting. He took in weak, worthless people. This will be easy to show him his place within this world of undead. I will reign supreme. Izuku stood before his old friend as he was staring at him with pure unbridled anger. He then attacked with a wide right hook as Izuku merely dodges to the left as the punch misses him, as Izuku then kicked Katsuki in the gut, sending him back. What the hell? How did you dodge that? Katsuki yelled. It's not hard to know what you're trying to do when you telegraph your attack so easily, Izuku said, angrily. Well, then I will change that, Katsuki yelled. as he attacked Izuku with his expertise with him fighting Izuku. Izuku was only relegated to be dodging as well as blocking Katsuki's explosion quirk as well as his attacks. Ochako and Eraserhead didn't know what to do, an undead who can talk as well as fight like a seasoned pro. That couldn't be true, they couldn't be getting more and more smart, since they are brain dead once turned. Mei then noticed how there was a bite mark on his left arm and immediately looked concerned. "How did you survive the bite mark on your right arm?" Mei called out. Oh, this little thing. This was gained today after getting attacked by a horde of them. I made sure all the poison in their bite was gone. I am immortal in terms of becoming one of them." Katsuki called out. "Oh, so you know the symptoms of the virus then?" Izuku asked, curious. "No, I don't know about that, but all I know is that whatever is inside their bite is not affecting me," he yelled. What nobody else realized with him screaming, a horde was making its way over to their area. Izuku was then placed on the blocking and dodging again as he was defending himself against Katsuki. He was launching attack after attack as Izuku countered to the best of his ability, and while he was doing his best in terms of dodging, he was hit a few times through his guard. Pushing himself back, Izuku had been getting angrier and angrier as he was feeling his subconscious going back into the fearful Deku he used to be. It was here that an old memory of his past came to light as he was now furious about the situation he is being forced into. "Kachan, slow down," a younger Izuku called out, as they were clearly preschool age. "Don't try to catch up to me, Deku. I don't want a quirkless following me." Katsuki called out, clearly the same age as well. Please just slow down. I can't keep up," Izuku called out, crying. "Wow, little Deku is crying. I am so glad we will be getting rid of him here." One of Katsuki's friends called out. They all reached a long log that was clearly still wet from the rain they had the other day, and Katsuki thought it would be smart to walk over it to get to the other side. "Kachan, I don't think walking over the log is a good idea," Izuku warned. "Don't tell me what to do, Deku. I do whatever the hell I want." Katsuki called out, angrily. Katsuki walked over the log, and as he was halfway across it he gave Izuku a smug look before tragedy struck. Katsuki slipped on the log as Izuku looked panicked and immediately ran over to the edge of the small hill to see where he was. And Katsuki was sitting in a small creek as he was rubbing his head as well as back as he was sniffling. Knowing that Katsuki was hurt, he ran down the hill as he reached his hand out as he asked one singular question that changed his view on the paragon of victory. "Kachan, are you okay?" Izuku asked, completely concerned for his best friend's health. "Get away from me, Deku. I don't need your help. And don't look down on me," a younger Katsuki screamed at Izuku, pushing him into the creek on his ass. What?" Izuku asked, completely bewildered at his best friend's change of nature. "Get the fuck away from me, you piece of shit," Katsuki screamed as he blasted Izuku into a tree, ending the memory. Izuku looked at Katsuki with a rage that was held in for many years, and Katsuki looked stunned by the angered look on Izuku's face. "That is it," Izuku screamed as he punched Katsuki so hard in the gut that the young man had vomited his lunch for the day on the ground. What the hell was that? Blarg. Katsuki groaned out, and threw up again. "I have had enough of your stupid Asanin shark to big bullshit." Izuku screamed as he kicked and broke all of Bakugo's arms and legs as he was letting 10 years of bullying as well as mental abuse out on the young man. Katsuki was then picked up like a kitten by Izuku, and he dragged the boy over to the wall that he scaled over in order to fight Izuku in the first place, and he saw that the undead were there looking up at him with both hunger as well as confusion. "Hey bastards, you want something to eat?" Izuku screamed out, as he heard lots of groans as well as undead howls. "Well, here's lunch for you all. And leave my home alone." Izuku screamed as he tossed Katsuki down into the horde of undead. And as everything slowed down for both Izuku and Katsuki, they both had differing looks on their faces. Katsuki had a look of utter fear and tribulation as Izuku had the look of pure anger and rage towards the boy that Katsuki saw Izuku mouth. "If you want to live in another life where you're not a piece of shit, kill yourself in order to become a better man. I got better shit to take care of than you." As Izuku walked away from the edge of the wall as Katsuki's screams of agony were heard from the other side of the wall. 1. Trigger warning. Izuku was walking away from the wall as Katsuki finally landed in slow motion on the ground in the horde of undead. As they descended upon him, Katsuki had a look of utter fear as well as surprise as they all came for him. They began to claw at his arms as well as legs before tearing them from his body, soliciting a scream of agony from the boy. As he watched as his body parts were eaten in front of himself, he found that more of the undead started to reach for his body as they staked their fingers into his chest as if the said fingers were forks, and Katsuki grunted in pain as they entered his body, bypassing his ribcage, and they pulled his flesh from his body. Once this started, Katsuki felt like he was going to faint as he felt his body convulsing as blood poured out of his mouth. Then he watched as they tore his head off from his body as they tossed it down the road as they tore his body to pieces, and all that was seemingly left was his head that was lying on the ground. As it spun towards something else that came up behind himself, he found a red-haired young man who had bite wounds all over his body and an undead look in his face. As the young man lowered his body down and looked at the head of Katsuki and opened his mouth and crunched on Katsuki's head and then swallowing it whole. That was what ended the great Katsuki Bakugo, and it was partly because of his oldest friend breaking the olive branch he held out to the young man as he had gone too far. Plus, trigger warning over. Izuku looked at his surroundings as he finds himself in a destroyed building. Everything around him is ringing as he gets up from the ground. As he looks at everything near himself, he finds Ochako fighting some of the undead as she is protecting her baby. It had been a few months since Katsuki's death and he doesn't know where it went wrong, but almost everybody had died during those few months, and all that was left of them all was him, Ochako, their baby, and Mei with Arie. All of the adults had died to protect them from the horde that were encroaching on their position right now. But as he got back up from the ground, he found himself riddled with bite marks on his body, and he wasn't happy that the undead were going for his family. And he ran off to attack them, holding them off so Mei can get the car started. They had gotten one from Aizawa when he looked out for some vehicles, and when the walls around his base fell because of someone with a vibration quirk, they were forced to leave as it wasn't safe anymore. So now he was forced to fight the undead as they bite and claw at him, trying to get to Ochako and Mei. But they are no match for him as he swings his bat kicks, claws as well as smashed their heads into the ground. As he looked back at his girlfriends, he found that they were ready to go, so he reached for the car and got inside as they drove away from the location. A few months prior, Izuku was standing near his friends as he looked at them with a dead look. Aizawa was walking close to him like he was a scared animal. "What do you need?" Izuku asked, sternly, "just trying to make sure that you're not going to go into your crazy mode again," Aizawa said, as he was next to the kid now. As Izuku looked up at him, he then suddenly hugged the man as he started to cry, and he couldn't stop the tears as he just sent his oldest friend to the undead. Aizawa wrapped his arms around Izuku as Ochako did the same thing. They were so into their little moment that they nearly missed the sounds of vibrations coming from the wall. Stopping their sad moment for a second, they saw the wall was vibrating as Smintos was furiously trying to add more concrete in order to stop the vibrations. But it was all for naught as the wall simply crumbled as Smintos was surrounded in seconds by the roaring undead as they saw him as the closest individual. He was screaming in pain as his blocks were bitten and torn to pieces as Izuku and the others ran back to the apartment complex. "We need to get out of here," Aizawa called out. "What do you mean?" Hound Dog asked, confused. "The undead broke the wall down. Smintos was killed while they invaded," Izuku screamed as they ran up the stairs to collect Mei and Arie, not only them but the others on the top floor. Reaching it in time, they found the others in the kitchen as they were already collecting supplies for the run. "You heard what's happening outside?" Izuku asked, as Nezu states that he placed cameras on the wall in order to keep a better eye on the undead. And when they saw the wall vibrating, they got everyone in the house and started collecting supplies in order to get out of there immediately. Mei came out of her room as she had a slightly bigger stomach, same with Nagant. "All right, I have everything I need, what about you guys?" she asked, concerned. "The undead are getting into the base, we need to get out of here, we can't take everything. We need to go now," Izuku said, moving to the back of the building. He had built a car worthy of taking all of them away while still being capable of driving through any kind of terrain with Mei's help. As everyone met him at the car, they found that the car was in working condition as they all get into it as they look around for their last person. It was Nezu as he was staying at the apartment. "What are you waiting for, Nezu? We need to leave," Izuku screamed, just as a screen showed up in the car. "Don't worry, I have my consciousness inside the vehicle. My body will be staying there to hold the dead off for you all," Nezu said, as they drove off. Back inside the apartment we find Nezu sipping some tea as he was looking out the window. "Be safe, young ones, it's now time for me to do what the heroes of old did, sacrifice myself for the betterment of the world," he said, as the banging on the door intensified to the point it was broken down as they ran inside the house. Nezu, being the badass that he was, fought all of them on his own until his very last breath, but was completely overwhelmed when his left leg was grabbed as he tried to bite his way through all of them. But it was no use, they tore him apart like Smentos as he cackled, thought the pain, and that was when a beeping sound was heard. Outside the base we find our heroes driving off when an explosion was heard back at the apartment as they look around and find hundreds of undead being sent flying around the base. "So long, Nezu, you were the best intelligence hero out there," Izuku mumbles as they leave their once protected home. It was about 5 hours later when they all arrived at UA in order to get some more supplies in order to make the vehicle more attuned for water travel as well as for any kind of terrain. Izuku and the others were sitting in the support classes room as they collected supplies from there as well as upgraded their vehicles with the newer metals. Nezu's consciousness was being weird now as he was telling them that the undead were coming there now and that they had to hurry it up in order to leave before they arrived. So now Nezu was a glorified undead tracker as they collected everything and upgraded the car as well as Nezu himself to the maximum they could. The car was entirely reliant on sunlight as it powered through the day. They needed to find a new home in order to escape the undead grasp. Soon enough the car ran out of sunlight that it stored, and they were at the beach of Tokyo. It wasn't safe outside, so they needed to hide inside the car in order to stay away from the undead. They weren't surrounded by them. Not the undead were at the beach, just not in the hundreds of thousands, just a few here and there. Izuku would wake up the next morning to Ochako screaming her daylights off as she screamed that the baby was coming. Izuku, becoming paranoid, told Nezu to take away all sound that was coming from the car. Once that was done, he focused on helping his girlfriend with giving birth as Aizawa was like the doctor encouraging her to continue onward. After a few painful hours for Ochako, the baby was born as they had a permanent blush on their cheeks with finger pads on their fingers. But the most adorable part about them was when they opened their eyes. They were big with one brown eye and one emerald. When Izuku looked at Ochako, he asked what they should name their child. Looking closely, they found that their child was a little girl, and Ochako stated a single name that made Izuku smile. "I want to name her Izuka, after you, Izu. She will have my last name though." Ochako chuckled, as Izuku nodded his head. They all were happy with the baby's birth, and they all headed out over the sea, going towards America. The only safe haven that they heard on the radio over a month ago, and their vehicle was capable of going in the water and traversing it without getting water inside. It would take a few days to get there, but the crew were fine with that. They could actually collect some seafood in order to keep themselves fed and stocked up on meat. 4 days later, Izuku and the others arrived at San Francisco, California. The one place where the undead couldn't get to over all the time they spent in Japan. Moving around the city they found out that there weren't any living people around at the moment, and as they moved around the place, they only found mounds over mounds of undead. But as they turned around another corner, they soon found that the street was filled with undead as they were jump scared by it as they drove away from the location. As they moved around, they found that the vehicle was losing power as the night was coming over them. So they were forced to ditch the vehicle and find a new one that wouldn't be solar powered as they found a smaller vehicle and got inside after killing the undead inside of it first. Turning it on, they found out that it had a full tank of gas, so they left the area and went to find a safe house in order to survive inside. They would spend the next few weeks looking around the place and found nothing in terms of safe houses. That was until they found a mall that had hundreds of undead nowhere to be found. That was a big red flag for the place, but from what they saw, there was nothing there and seemed to be fully stocked with the supplies they needed. Parking in the parking garage, they moved around the mall only to find the place was only slightly infested with the undead. Killing all that were present, they looked around and closed off certain areas that would be too much for them to handle, and just left it be. As they all were walking back to their own little bubble of the mall, they turned around only to find hundreds of undead looking at them as they stood across the way. "Gee guys, we need to run," Izuku screamed as the undead ran towards them. That's right, ran. Izuku and the others fought off the undead as they ran, but the numbers were beginning to overwhelm them all as they made it back to the car, only to find Nagant's body completely pulled apart as her stomach was open, revealing that her insides were eaten completely. As they ran away from the car, they ran towards the gate of the parking garage as they climbed over the pole that was blocking it from the entrance. Once over, they ran as far as they could with the undead on their tails. Even Eraserhead was beginning to slow down as they were getting farther and farther away. Finding a place to rest for a little bit, Eraserhead looked at them all as he told them his plan for them. "All right, I need you all to listen. I am only going to hold you all back when it comes to running. I am going to stay back and hold them all off so you can escape," Eraserhead said, as they sat by the fire. "What are you talking about? ? They'll tear you apart the moment they get their hands on you," Izuku countered. "Well, that is the plan. I have a few grenades on me from Mei who made them. If I get like that, then I will not be killed by them, I will go out on my own terms. You all are kids, you need to live to your adult years, so I will only hold you back because of my age. I can't run for much longer, kids, I hope you know that. So when the morning comes, you need to run as far away from here as possible. Once you do that, never look back nor come back," Eraserhead said, as he stared at them all. Nodding their heads, they all went to sleep for the night, afraid of what was going to happen to Eraserhead. The next morning came, and the youngsters all ran off while Eraserhead played with one of the grenades. While this was happening, they found another car to use and used it to drive away, leaving behind the last hero that they knew about. Hawks and Mirko had been capable of leaving the place themselves, just got split apart from the group. "Don't worry about them, they're alive," smiley face, also sorry for killing off Nagant like that. "I didn't need to do it, but I needed it for some shock value. Also, she was still asleep when it happened." With Eraserhead he looked at the incoming horde of undead as he pulled out a knife as well as a pick. "All right, Oboro, Hazashi, I hope you all can forgive me for what I'm about to do. And if you do, I will be able to see you both in the other world," Eraserhead said, as he ran towards the first undead as he kicked it in the face and caused all the undead to look in his direction. Izuku and the others were about 5 miles away when they heard a faint explosion in the distance. "Geez, what is with everyone and exploding in a blaze of glory?" Izuku mumbled, as they all laughed. They soon reached the border of California as they saw the trees in the distance as they looked at their map. "This looks like Oregon, but we need to stay away from the cities. They will be filled with the undead," Izuku said, as they moved about. About approximately 5 hours later they found themselves running around a city that Izuku specifically told them not to go to as he looked to Mei with an angered look. "Why doesn't anybody listen to me?" Izuku yelled as the girls nervously chuckled at his pain. "Sorry, we needed to change our clothes. We were stinking up a storm," Mei said, as Izuku looked at her with disbelief. "You stink all the time around the base back a few days ago. You choose now to make yourself more presentable," Izuku growled. "Sorry," Mei called out, as they ran into a small house. As they tried to barricade themselves in the house, the walls caved in as the undead covered Izuku as they tried to bite into his skin before blanching at it. Present, Izuku got from the floor as he killed every undead that he could see, making his way over to Mei and Ochako. Getting into a new car they drove off towards the countryside as they needed to get away from the cities from now on. Soon enough they found a community that had walls on the outside of the place. Moving closer to the walls they stopped at the gate when another person showed up and pointed a gun at their car. "Move out of the vehicle and tell us why you're here," a male voice called out, angrily. Getting out of the car, Izuku stood in front of Mei and Ochako as the man looked at Izuku. "Who are you, and why are you here?" he yelled. Please. We just got here from the road. There used to be more of us until the undead killed them all. Please, my girlfriends need to be inside there," Izuku pleaded. "What the?" "What are kids doing outside the walls?" he called out as he opened the gates. Meeting them at the ground level, he soon found that Izuku and the girls stunk very badly. "Welcome to the parish. This place has held out against all the zombies could throw at us," the man said happily. "Gee, thank you, sir," Izuku said, as the man looked back at him. "Don't call me sir. My name is Charles, but you can call me Chuck. I don't really know a bunch of people here, but you should know that this base is the strongest base in the United States of America," he boasted. "Well, we came from Japan to get here," Izuku said, as the man did a spit take as he looked incredulous. "What? How in the bloody hell did you get here?" Chuck asked, confused. "We took a boat here and our friends died off one by one until we reached here." "Well, are any of you bitten?" he asked. "What do you mean by that?" Ochako asked. "Well, if you're bitten then you turn. It starts with a fever, then you slowly pale as your blood cells die off, then your body shuts itself down, killing itself slowly before you turn at the last breath your body takes. After that you become one of the dead," he said, as he looked at Izuku. "I've been bitten many times in my life since this whole shebang started. But I never became infected with it," Izuku said, as he looked at the man. "Wait, you're immune? Holy shit, the doctor is going to love you. ? The man said, running off. "I have no idea who this doctor is, but let's get to it," Izuku said, as they followed the man. Arriving in a doctor's place, they found the man talking to the doctor as they looked at Izuku. "So you're the first immune person of this plague?" the doctor asked, as Izuku nodded his head. "Well, let's get a blood test done." "What is your quirk?" the doctor asked. "Actually, I'm quirkless," Izuku said, as everything in the room just stopped. "What?" the doctor asked, curious. "I'm quirkless. I haven't turned because of my quirkless status," Izuku said, as he sat down. "Well, I knew that the quirkless would be the truth to all this mess," the doctor said, as he smiled happily. "Kid, you're going to become the hero of the entire world," Chuck said as everyone smiled. 5 years later, the world had been introduced to the cure for the undead as they had taken it by storm. The undead were killed off by the militaries who were still around in the world. And by the time 5 years had passed, the whole world was zombie-free and the plague had been defeated pretty easily. They also found Hawks flying around with Mirko hanging by his foot, as they smiled at the jet. We soon enter America as we see the President of the United States giving Izuku a Medal of Honor as he tells the world that Izuku Midoriya was the sole savior of the world as he was the cure for this undead virus. We end our story with Izuku giving his wife and kids a kiss, but soon that would look around as everything would soon become a mirage. As we find Izuku inside his home as his mother looked at him scared, he looked around only to find that his mother was slowly coming closer and closer to him. Beginning to be a little scared, he soon found out why. It was all a dream and his mother was giving him a hug. "Sorry Izuku, but you need to go back to sleep, your fever is getting a little better. I hope that whatever this was makes sure that you feel better for the rest of the week," Inko said, as she smiled at her son. As soon as Izuku would fall back asleep, the camera would soon move away from him as his body convulsed. And soon enough, he woke up and with only one thought coming to mind: feast. The end. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Drop green hearts in the comments so I can know who watches the video till the end, and make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Now we will see you in the next video.